Chapter 181, Captive Defiance. The metallic taste of Darian's blood lingered on my tongue as I glared at him across the SUV. My wolf, Cora, snarled beneath my skin, urging me to attack again despite being restrained by his rogue wolves. "Wipe that look off your face, little mate," Darian said, dabbing at the wound on his hand with a cloth. "This isn't how I imagined our reunion." "Don't call me that," I spat, struggling against the iron grip of the rogues holding me. "I am not your mate. I will never be your mate." Darian's amber eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Liam promised you to me. Your father?" "He was not my father," I cut him off, fury building within me. "And even if he had promised something so ridiculous, it doesn't matter. Roman is my mate now." A cruel smile spread across Darian's face. "Roman? Always Roman. The adopted brother who couldn't keep his hands off his sister." I lunged forward, nearly breaking free from my captors. "You have no right to speak about him." The SUV swerved sharply as the driver navigated a treacherous curve. Through the windows, I could see snow-covered trees rushing past. We were heading deep into the wilderness, away from Roman's territory. "Restrain her properly," Darian ordered, his voice tight with irritation. "Use the silver cuffs if necessary." One of the rogues produced a pair of silver handcuffs from a black bag. The sight of them made my stomach turn. Silver would weaken me, make my wolf retreat, and leave me vulnerable. I thrashed wildly, throwing my body weight against the wolves holding me. "Touch me with those and I'll tear your throats out." My outburst seemed to amuse Darian. "Such fire," he murmured, leaning forward despite his injured shoulder. "You've changed, Scarlett. The little girl I knew in the Thorne pack would never have dared speak to me like this." "That little girl grew up," I snarled, "and learned what traitors like you really are." Darian's expression darkened. He nodded to his men, and they forced my wrists together, preparing to clasp the silver cuffs around them. I heard a sharp intake of breath from the driver. "Alpha," he called back urgently. "We've got company. Shadow Organization enforcers, 3 vehicles, closing fast." A surge of hope blossomed in my chest. Roman had found us. Darian cursed, moving to look out the rear window. His face hardened when he confirmed the pursuit. He turned to me, his expression calculating. "Call him off," he ordered. I laughed in his face. "No." "Call him off," Darian repeated, his voice dropping dangerously, "or I'll drive this vehicle over the ravine with you inside it." I stared into his eyes, searching for the bluff. There was none. In that moment, I realized just how far Darian Morrison had fallen since his exile from the Thorne pack. The once proud son of Malcolm Morrison, who had served as beta to my adoptive father, was now nothing more than a desperate rogue wolf with a vendetta. "Do it," I challenged, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You know Roman won't stop. You know he'll find you no matter what, and when he does, he'll tear you apart piece by piece for even daring to touch me." The rogues in the vehicle exchanged nervous glances. One of them whispered to another, "This isn't what we signed up for." The tension in the SUV was palpable. Darian stared at me, the muscle in his jaw twitching with barely contained rage. "I want something from your precious Roman," he finally said, his voice controlled. "Something he took from me when he exiled my family from the pack." I scoffed. "You were exiled because you and your sister tried to drive me away, because you betrayed the pack." "We were loyal to the pack," Darian roared, his composure finally cracking. "My father served Liam faithfully for decades. We deserved better than being cast out like common rogues just because Roman couldn't stand anyone getting close to his precious little Scarlett." I tried to slap him, but he caught my wrist easily, squeezing until I winced. "Does your precious Alpha value you enough to exchange what I want?" he asked, his amber eyes glowing with malice. Instead of answering, I lunged forward and sank my teeth into his neck, dangerously close to his artery. Cora drove me forward, demanding blood for his insults to Roman. Darian howled in pain, his hand flying to his gun. He pressed the barrel against my side. "Let go, or I'll put a silver bullet in you." I bit harder, tasting more blood. The rogues watched in shock as their Alpha struggled with me, neither of us willing to back down. Blood dripped onto the leather seat between us, hot and metallic. "She's going to kill him," one of the rogues muttered in disbelief. Finally, Darian managed to wrench me away, his neck now sporting a vicious wound. He pressed his hand to it, blood seeping between his fingers. "You little wildcat," he gasped, his eyes wide with a mixture of pain and surprise. "Where did this come from? You used to call me Brother Darian and hide behind Roman whenever I walked into a room." I wiped his blood from my mouth with the back of my hand. "Like I said, I grew up." Darian stared at me with new eyes, as if truly seeing me for the first time. The sweet, timid girl he remembered had been replaced by a she-wolf who would tear out his throat without hesitation. "Alpha," the driver called back again, more urgently this time. "They're gaining on us." Darian's expression hardened once more. He pressed a cloth to his bleeding neck and turned to give orders to his men. My heart pounded in my chest as I raced my car up the snowy driveway to Roman's seaside villa. Something was terribly wrong. I had heard Scarlett scream before our call abruptly ended, and now she wasn't answering any of my frantic calls or texts. As I rounded the final curve, I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding slightly on the icy surface. The scene before me was chaos. Pack enforcers ran in all directions, weapons drawn. Blood splattered the pristine snow, creating grotesque patterns of red against white. But what stopped me cold was the sight of Eric Blackwood and Aidan Walsh locked in what appeared to be a violent confrontation. Eric had Aidan pinned against the wall of the villa, his forearm pressed against the healer's throat. Both were covered in blood. I scrambled out of my car, nearly slipping on the ice in my haste. "What happened?" I demanded, my voice shrill with panic. "Where's Scarlett?" Eric's head whipped around, his cold eyes assessing me briefly before dismissing me as a threat. He released Aidan, who slumped against the wall, gasping for breath. "Who is this?" Eric asked, his aristocratic European accent crisp despite the tension in the air. "Emma Chase," Aidan wheezed, massaging his throat. "Scarlett's friend." I rushed forward, ignoring Eric's intimidating presence. "Where is she? I was on the phone with her when something happened. I heard her scream." Eric's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. "Her promised mate has taken her," he said coolly, as if announcing nothing more significant than a change in the weather. I froze, trying to process his words. "Her what? Promised mate? That's impossible. Roman is her mate." "Not according to Darian Morrison," Aidan said, finally regaining his breath. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Aidan said it, with a mixture of contempt and fear, told me everything I needed to know. "Is she in danger?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Will he hurt her?" Eric's lips curved into a humorless smile. "Not fatally. She's too valuable to him. But she may suffer a bit before Roman finds them." "Suffer?" I echoed, horror washing over me. "What do you mean, suffer?" Aidan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, though the gesture felt hollow given the circumstances. "Darian won't damage her permanently. He wants her as his mate, after all." "I don't understand," I said, looking between them. "Who is this Darian? How can he claim to be her promised mate when everyone knows she loves Roman?" Eric sighed, apparently growing tired of my questions. Darian Morrison was the son of Malcolm Morrison, beta to Liam Thorne, Scarlett's adoptive father. Years ago, Liam apparently made some casual arrangement suggesting Scarlett might one day be mated to Darian. "It was barely a serious proposal," Aidan added. "More of a joke between packmates, but Darian has clung to it, especially after his family was exiled from the Thorne pack." "Exiled? Why?" I asked. "Because Darian and his sister Lily tried to drive Scarlett away from the pack," Aidan explained, his expression grim. "They were jealous of her relationship with Roman, even back then." I shook my head, trying to make sense of it all. "So this man has kidnapped Scarlett based on some vague promise made years ago? That's insane." "He's been searching for her since she left the Eastern Territories," Eric said, brushing imaginary dust from his impeccable suit despite the blood staining it. "Roman has been less than pleased about it." The understatement was clear from Eric's tone. I could only imagine Roman's fury at another wolf hunting his mate. "Where is Roman now?" I asked, looking around at the chaotic scene. The shadow enforcers were mobilizing, loading weapons into vehicles, their movements precise and deadly. As if in answer to my question, Hunter Stone emerged from the villa, his normally stoic face tight with controlled anger. "Roman left immediately in pursuit," Hunter said, addressing Eric rather than me. Logan was barely contained beneath his skin. I've never seen him so close to losing control. "Logan," I whispered to Aidan. "Roman's wolf," Aidan explained quietly. When he's that angry, it's dangerous for everyone. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling the cold more acutely. Will he find her? Hunter's gaze finally shifted to me, his expression softening slightly. There's nowhere on this earth Darian can hide her that Roman won't find her. But the question is, what damage will Darian do before then? The words hung in the frigid air, making my blood run cold. I thought of Scarlett's scream, the last thing I'd heard before our call was cut off. Somewhere out there, my best friend was in the hands of a man who believed he had the right to claim her. Chapter 182, Dangerous Defiance. The hunting lodge loomed before us, a forgotten structure nestled deep within Silver Ridge. After 5 days of relentless evasion, constantly moving, barely sleeping, we'd finally reached the neutral territory. Even Roman's infamous shadow organization hunters couldn't freely operate here without consequences. I pulled the SUV to a stop, eyeing Scarlett in the rearview mirror. Despite being my captive for nearly a week, she still maintained that defiant glare, those emerald eyes burning with hatred. The bruise on her cheek where one of my rogues had struck her was already fading, her wolf's healing abilities working efficiently. "We're here," I announced, unlocking the vehicle doors. "This will be home for a while." "It looks like a death trap," she muttered, glancing at the weathered wooden structure. I ignored her comment, gesturing for my remaining rogues to secure the perimeter. Only 3 had survived Roman's relentless pursuit. The others, well, I didn't allow myself to think about what remained of them. Inside, the lodge was cold and musty. Dust covered every surface, but the structure was sound. Most importantly, it was isolated. No one would find us here unless I wanted them to. "The temperature drops at night," I said, pulling a heavy fur coat from my bag. "Put this on." Scarlett's lip curled in disgust. "I'd rather freeze." "Don't be difficult." I sighed, holding the coat out to her. "You're no use to me sick or dead." For a moment, she just stared at the coat. Then, without warning, she snatched it and threw it directly at my head. The heavy fur slapped against my face before falling to the floor. "Go to hell," she snapped, crossing her arms over her chest. I counted to 5 slowly in my head, tamping down the urge to strike her. "You're acting like an alpha's mate now," I observed, keeping my voice deliberately calm. "Roman spoiled you." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "Where's my phone? I want it back." I laughed. "Your phone? You think I'd let you contact Roman?" "It has important contacts," she insisted. "Healing center clients, suppliers." "Check your pockets," I replied with a smirk. "If you still have it after our eventful escape, you're welcome to it." She frantically patted her pockets, her expression falling when she realized the phone was gone. "It must have fallen during our frantic escape from Roman's enforcers, lost somewhere in the snow-covered wilderness." "Looks like you're not calling anyone," I said, satisfaction evident in my tone. "Now clean yourself up. There's a bathroom upstairs." Scarlett didn't move. Her emerald eyes tracked me like a predator, calculating, waiting for an opening. "Don't even think about it," I warned, recognizing that look. "There's nowhere to run for miles. And unlike Roman, I won't hesitate to put a silver bullet in that pretty leg of yours if you try." The rage on her face was almost intoxicating. This Scarlett was nothing like the shy, gentle girl I remembered from the Thorne pack. This one had teeth and claws and wasn't afraid to use them. I turned away, heading toward the master bedroom. 5 days of constant vigilance had worn me down. I needed rest, needed to gather my strength for what was coming next. "Stay downstairs," I ordered over my shoulder. "Try to escape, and you'll regret it." And the hot water of the shower felt like paradise on my aching muscles. As I washed away days of grime and dried blood, I assessed the damage to my body. Roman's silver bullet had left a nasty wound in my shoulder, and the bite marks from Scarlett covered my hand, arm, and neck. The she-wolf had done more damage than I'd anticipated. After drying off and changing into clean clothes, I collapsed onto the bed. Just a few minutes, I told myself, just enough rest to clear my head. I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep until the explosion jolted me awake. The entire lodge shook, dust and debris raining from the ceiling. I bolted upright, grabbing my gun before racing downstairs. Smoke filled the main room, billowing from what remained of the kitchen. Through the haze, I could make out Scarlett standing amid the destruction, a satisfied smirk on her face. "What did you do?" I roared, surveying the blackened walls and shattered windows. "I was just trying to cook," she replied innocently, though her eyes sparkled with malicious triumph. "Venison stew for my promised mate. The gas stove seems to be faulty. The kitchen was destroyed. The gas line had clearly been tampered with, creating the perfect conditions for an explosion. My already limited supplies were scattered or ruined, and worse, the smoke would be visible for miles, potentially signaling our location to Roman's hunters. Fury erupted within me. This little witch had put everything at risk with her reckless defiance. My wolf surged beneath my skin, demanding retribution. I raised my gun, aiming it directly at her heart. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't end you right now," I growled, my finger tightening on the trigger. She didn't cower, didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, her wolf Cora rising to the surface, turning her emerald eyes to an unnatural bright green. "Because you need me alive," she challenged. "Whatever game you're playing with Roman requires me breathing." In a blur of movement too fast for human eyes, she lunged forward. Her teeth sank into my wrist, the one holding the gun. The pain was instant and excruciating. She wasn't just biting, she was tearing. I howled as I felt flesh separating from bone. The gun clattered to the floor as warm blood sprayed across both of us. With supernatural strength, Scarlett ripped a chunk of flesh from my wrist, her eyes wild with primal satisfaction. She spat the bloody piece onto the scorched floorboards, her lips stained crimson. "Next time," she promised, her voice barely recognizable through Cora's influence, "it'll be your throat." Scarlett's POV. The metallic taste of Darian's blood filled my mouth. Cora howled with satisfaction inside me, urging me to finish what I'd started, to tear out his throat and end this now. I could feel my canines lengthening, my fingers curving into claws as my partial shift continued. Darian clutched his mangled wrist, his face contorted with pain and shock. He hadn't expected this from me. None of them ever did. They all remembered the frightened little girl from the Thorne pack, not the woman Roman had helped me become. Before either of us could make another move, Darian's phone rang. The tense silence was broken by the electronic chime, oddly mundane amid the destruction around us. Darian glanced at the screen, his expression shifting from pain to something like anticipation. Without taking his eyes off me, he answered, putting it on speaker. "Darian." Roman's voice filled the room, so cold and controlled it seemed to lower the temperature. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Despite my situation, hearing Roman's voice made my heart leap. He was close. He was coming for me. "Roman Thorne," Darian replied, his own voice strained but mocking. "How nice of you to call. Your mate sends her regards. Don't you, Scarlett?" I remained silent, watching Darian carefully. Any sign of distraction, any opening, and I would strike again. "Listen carefully," Roman continued, his tone deadly. "If a single hair on her head is harmed, I will personally ensure that what remains of your sister Lily will be unrecognizable. You know I can find her, Darian. You know I will." To my surprise, Darian laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that echoed in the destroyed room. "Lily?" he scoffed. "Threaten all you want, Roman. My sister means nothing to me now. Not after she betrayed me to save her own skin." The revelation struck me. From what I remembered, Darian and Lily had always been inseparable, especially in their schemes against me. Something had changed dramatically since they were exiled from the Thorne pack. "You sound desperate, Roman," Darian continued, his amber eyes never leaving mine. "Could it be that the mighty Shadow King is actually afraid of losing his precious little mate?" "I'll find you," Roman promised, his voice so quiet it was barely audible. "And when I do, death will be a mercy you'll beg for but never receive." Darian's smile turned cruel. "Keep coming, then, but remember, the closer you get, the more likely I am to mark her as mine. Would you still want her then, Roman, knowing another wolf had claimed what you consider yours?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost feel Roman's rage through the phone. "You wouldn't dare," Roman finally said. "Try me," Darian challenged before abruptly ending the call. He threw the phone onto a nearby chair, wincing as the movement jarred his injured wrist. Blood continued to seep through his fingers, dripping onto the floor. I stared at him, truly seeing the changes in him for the first time. This wasn't the Darian I remembered, the arrogant but controlled son of the Thorne pack beta. This was someone unhinged, pushed to the edge by 2 years of being hunted by the Shadow Organization. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice quieter now. What could possibly be worth becoming Roman's enemy for life? Darian's laugh was bitter. I was already his enemy the moment my father questioned his right to lead after Liam died. "That doesn't explain why you sided with Lily years ago," I pressed, genuinely curious. "You weren't even close siblings. Why help her force me away from Luna, Catherine, and Natalie?" His face transformed, rage blazing in his amber eyes. The question had hit a nerve, though I wasn't sure why. "Don't speak of things you know nothing about," he snarled, his wolf rising closer to the surface. "You understand nothing about my family or our reasons." "Then explain it to me," I challenged, sensing a weakness I could exploit. "Because from where I'm standing, you threw away everything. Your position, your future, your pack, and for what? To kidnap me? To antagonize Roman?" "Enough," he roared, his voice echoing through the destroyed lodge. I took a step back, startled by the intensity of his reaction. There was something here, something deeper than I'd initially suspected. "Send me back," I demanded, straightening my spine. "Send me back to the Eastern Territories, back to Roman." "Back to Roman? Whatever you're planning, it isn't worth it." Darian's eyes met mine, his wolf peeking through the amber irises. His voice dropped to a low growl, primal and possessive. "You're never going back to him." Chapter 183. Desperate Measures. My hands were still shaking from the aftermath of the explosion. The satisfaction of destroying half of Darian's hunting lodge had been worth it, even if it meant I now had soot streaking my face and arms. The kitchen and living room were completely decimated. Blackened walls, shattered windows, and the acrid smell of smoke permeating everything. Darian had practically dragged me to another section of the estate, his face contorted with fury as he muttered curses under his breath. His injured wrist from where I'd bitten him was hastily bandaged, blood still seeping through the cloth. "You'll stay here," he'd growled, shoving me into a bedroom at the far end of the lodge. "And if you try anything like that again, I won't be so lenient." I'd merely smiled at him, enjoying his rage. Let him be angry. Let him understand that I wasn't some docile wolf he could control. The bedroom was small but functional, a single bed with worn blankets, a dresser with a cracked mirror, and a tiny adjoining bathroom. After being held captive for nearly a week, the prospect of a hot shower was too tempting to resist. I stood under the scalding spray, scrubbing away days of fear and anger. My wolf, Cora, paced restlessly beneath my skin, urging me to keep fighting, to find a way back to Roman. Our mate bond thrummed faintly. He was out there, searching for me. I could feel him. After drying off with a threadbare towel, I pulled on the only clean clothes I could find, a faded t-shirt and sweatpants that Darian had tossed at me earlier. They were too big, obviously his, but I had little choice. When I emerged from the bathroom, I froze. Darian was sitting on the edge of my bed, a book open in his hands. His amber eyes flickered up to meet mine, casual as if this was completely normal. "What are you doing in here?" I demanded, clutching the doorframe. Darian closed the book slowly, setting it aside. "Making sure you don't destroy what's left of my property," he replied. "You've proven you can't be trusted alone." "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. He smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid that's not possible. This is the only usable bedroom left, thanks to your little kitchen experiment." I glanced around, realizing with growing horror what he was implying. "If you think we're sharing this room, we are," he cut me off. "And this bed." "I'll sleep on the floor," I said immediately. Darian laughed, the sound harsh in the small room. "Don't be ridiculous, it's freezing, and the floor is hardly comfortable." "I'd rather freeze than share a bed with you," I spat. He stood up slowly, his tall frame unfolding as he approached me. Even injured, he moved with the predatory grace of an alpha wolf. "You don't have a choice," he said, stopping inches from me. "Unless you'd prefer I use those silver handcuffs after all?" I held my ground, refusing to be intimidated. "Touch me, and I'll finish what I started with your wrist." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He reached out suddenly, grabbing the collar of my shirt. I reacted instinctively, jerking away. There was a loud tearing sound as the fabric ripped. I gasped, clutching the torn edges together. Rage bubbled up inside me, Cora howling for retribution. I lunged forward, ready to claw his eyes out, but froze when I felt the cold press of metal against my throat. Darian held a silver blade, its edge gleaming in the dim light. "Don't," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes dropped to my neck, where the shirt had fallen open to reveal the claiming marks Roman had left. His expression darkened, amber eyes blazing with sudden fury. "What is this?" he hissed, using the tip of the blade to push the fabric aside, exposing more of the marks. I said nothing, lifting my chin defiantly. Darian pressed me against the wall, his face inches from mine. "Do you remember what I told you before you left the Eastern Territories?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. I remained silent, but my mind flashed back to that night years ago. Darian cornering me in the darkness, his words like poison in my ear. "Remember, you are my promised mate. Stay away from Roman." "I see you didn't heed my warning," he continued, his fingers tracing the air just above the marks on my skin, careful not to touch them. "Your warning was meaningless," I replied, anger and tears burning in my eyes. "Just like your claim, I was never your promised mate." His hand shot up, grabbing a fistful of my hair. "Then what is this?" he snarled, yanking my head to the side to fully expose Roman's marks. "What has he done to you?" His wolf was rising, amber eyes bleeding into a golden glow. I could feel his rage, his possessiveness, as if he truly believed he had some claim over me. "He's my mate," I said, the words like a weapon. "My true mate, not some delusional fantasy based on a casual comment my adoptive father once made." Darian's grip tightened painfully in my hair. "Liam promised you to me," he growled, his voice distorted by his partially emerged wolf. "You were meant to be mine long before Roman decided to claim what didn't belong to him." I attempted to twist away, bringing my knee up to strike him. He anticipated the move, easily blocking it with his thigh. "Those childish tactics might work on Natalie's enforcers," he sneered, "but not on me. Did she teach you that one? Or was it your precious Roman?" Something snapped inside me. With wolf-enhanced strength, I brought my foot up in a different angle, connecting solidly with his groin. Darian doubled over with a howl of pain, releasing me instantly. I scrambled away, putting distance between us as he fell to one knee. My eyes darted around the room, searching for a weapon. On the dresser sat a heavy silver ornament, some kind of wolf statue. I grabbed it, holding it like a club. "Stay back," I warned, raising it threateningly. Darian's face was contorted with pain and fury as he slowly straightened. "You'll pay for that," he promised, his voice strained. In that moment, looking at his rage-filled eyes, I knew he wouldn't stop. He would keep hunting me, keep trying to claim me, keep threatening Roman, all because of some perceived right he believed he had. A desperate idea formed in my mind. I turned the silver ornament around, pressing its sharp edge against my own throat. "Scarlett!" Darian shouted, alarm replacing fury in an instant. "What are you doing?" "Stay back," I repeated, pressing the silver harder against my skin. I could feel it beginning to burn, my wolf retreating from the contact. He lunged forward with supernatural speed, grabbing my wrist before I could apply more pressure. "Are you insane?" he hissed, wrenching the ornament from my grasp. His fingers dug painfully into my wrist as he threw my hand aside. The silver ornament clattered to the floor, spinning away under the bed. Darian's chest heaved with rapid breaths, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. Without another word, he turned and strode toward the door. At the threshold, he paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you truly believe you can be with him?" he asked, his voice suddenly quiet. "Do you think the pack will accept it? You were raised as siblings. That's not for you to decide," I replied steadily, "and it doesn't change the fact that I am his mate, not yours." His jaw tightened. "You are my promised mate by your father's word. Nothing changes that, Scarlett, not even those marks on your neck." The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing in the small room. I released a shaky breath, my legs giving way as I slid down the wall to sit on the floor. "Psycho," I muttered, rubbing my wrist where his grip had left marks. My fingers traced the claiming marks on my neck, Roman's marks. The mate bond between us wasn't for Darian or anyone else to decide. It had formed naturally, powerfully, a connection that transcended the circumstances of our upbringing. Despite the fear and uncertainty of my situation, I found myself smiling. At least Darian wouldn't be sharing my room after all. My little performance with the silver ornament had ensured that. Now I just needed to stay alive and defiant until Roman found me. Chapter 184, Daring Escape. I woke up with a jolt, sensing someone else in my room. There, sitting on a small couch in the corner, was a she-wolf I hadn't seen before. She had cropped brown hair and watchful eyes that followed my every move. "Who are you?" I demanded, sitting up straight in bed. "And what are you doing in my room?" The woman's lip curled slightly. "Alpha.They assigned me to keep an eye on you. After your little kitchen explosion stunt, he doesn't trust you alone." "Great. A babysitter." I swung my legs off the bed and glared at her. "I need to shower," I said flatly, heading toward the bathroom. "Make it quick," she replied, not moving from her spot. Under the hot water, I let my mind race. This new development complicated things. When I emerged from the bathroom, the she-wolf was still there, flipping through a magazine with feigned disinterest. "I don't even know your name," I said, trying to sound casual. She looked up, seemingly surprised by my attempt at conversation. "Melissa. Melissa Carter." "Well, Melissa, I'm not sharing a room with you," I stated firmly, crossing my arms. "I need privacy." She shrugged, unmoved by my declaration. "Take it up with Alpha.They. I follow his orders, not yours." "Fine," I huffed, putting on my best annoyed expression. "I'll talk to him directly about this arrangement." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "He's busy right now. You can speak with him tomorrow." God. I let out an exaggerated sigh, flopping down on the bed dramatically. "Whatever. I'm going to sleep then." "Good idea," she said, returning to her magazine. I turned my back to her, staring at the wall. Minutes passed in silence, then I heard her shift on the couch, the leather creaking slightly. "You're being awfully quiet," she observed, suspicion lacing her tone. "I'm tired," I mumbled, not turning around. "Being kidnapped is exhausting." Another few minutes of silence followed. Finally, I heard her stand up. "I need to report to Alpha.They," she announced. "Don't try anything while I'm gone." "As if I could go anywhere," I replied bitterly, still facing the wall. I listened as her footsteps crossed the room and the door opened and closed. As soon as I was sure she was gone, I sprang into action. I grabbed the extra pillows and arranged them under the blanket to look like a sleeping form. Then I positioned myself behind the door, heart pounding in anticipation. It took Melissa less than 10 minutes to return. The door opened slowly, and she slipped inside. Her attention immediately went to the bed where my sleeping form lay. Without checking behind her, she walked toward the bed to confirm I was actually asleep. Perfect. I moved silently, using all the stealth skills Natalie had taught me over the years. With wolf-enhanced strength, I struck the back of Melissa's head with a heavy book I'd grabbed from the nightstand. She crumpled to the floor without a sound. "Sorry about that," I whispered, quickly checking her pulse to ensure she was only unconscious. Working fast, I stripped off her clothes and put them on. They were a better fit than Darian's oversized stuff, and would help me blend in with the other wolves. I found her phone in her pocket, locked, but still potentially useful. I tied her up with torn strips of bedsheet and gagged her, then dragged her unconscious form into the bathroom and locked the door from the outside. Heart racing, I peered out into the hallway. Clear. I slipped out of the room, trying to remember the layout of the hunting lodge from when Darian had first brought me in. The study was downstairs, past what remained of the destroyed kitchen. I moved silently, keeping to the shadows. Voices drifted from somewhere in the lodge, Darian and another man discussing something in hushed tones. I crept in the opposite direction, making my way toward the study. The door was unlocked. I slipped inside, closing it quietly behind me. Moonlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the cluttered desk. Papers were strewn everywhere, maps marked with red circles, documents bearing official-looking stamps. I rifled through them quickly, looking for what I'd glimpsed earlier when Darian had first brought me to the lodge, a document about territorial boundaries that might reveal exactly where we were. There it was, tucked under a map, coordinates for Silver Ridge, a remote area in the neutral territory. Now that I knew my precise location, I closed my eyes and focused on my mate bond with Roman. Over the past week, I'd felt him searching, his presence growing stronger as he got closer. Now I pushed with all my might, sending him an image of the hunting lodge, the coordinates, the layout. "I'm here," I whispered through our bond. Silver Ridge Hunting Lodge. The bond hummed in response, and I felt a surge of fierce determination that wasn't my own. Roman had received my message. He was coming. I glanced around the study, taking stock of my situation. The hunting lodge was surrounded by dense forest, with a narrow path leading out to the main road almost a mile away. There would be guards. Darian wasn't stupid enough to leave the perimeter unprotected, especially after my kitchen explosion. My eyes landed on a flashlight sitting on the desk. An idea formed in my mind, risky but potentially effective. I grabbed the flashlight and a small bag I found in the corner, stuffing it with a few essential items: a knife, matches, a water bottle. Now for the real challenge, getting past the guards and into the forest. "You did what?" Ryan Hayes stared at me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and horror. I took a sip of whiskey, wincing as the movement pulled at the wound on my wrist, where Scarlett had torn out a chunk of flesh with her teeth. "You heard me," I replied, keeping my voice level. "I took Scarlett from Roman's villa." Ryan ran a hand through his dark hair, pacing the small conference room. As my second in command, he was the only one I trusted with the full truth of my plans. Until now, apparently, he hadn't realized exactly what I'd done. "Do you have a death wish?" he demanded. "This is Roman Thorne we're talking about, the Shadow King, the man who single-handedly wiped out the Thompson pack when they dared to touch his territory borders." "I know who he is," I said coolly. "Better than most." Ryan stopped pacing to look at me directly. "Then you know how protective he is of Scarlett. He raised her for Moon's sake, and now she's his mate. He'll tear apart anyone who threatens her." I slammed my glass down, ignoring the pain that shot through my injured hand. "She was promised to me by Liam Thorne himself." "A joking comment made years ago," Ryan countered, shaking his head. "Even if Liam had been serious, he's dead, and Roman is Alpha now. His claim supersedes any casual promise Liam might have made." "What's your end game here?" he asked after a moment, his voice quieter. "Are you going to return her after you get what you want from Roman?" The question hung in the air between us. In truth, I wasn't entirely sure myself. The plan had been simple initially: use Scarlett as leverage to force Roman to return what he'd taken from me when he exiled my family. But having her here, seeing what she'd become, strong, fierce, defiant, awakened something I hadn't expected. "The plan remains as discussed," I said finally, avoiding a direct answer. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd known me long enough to recognize evasion. "Darian," he said carefully, "whatever grudge you hold against Roman, it's not worth a war with the Shadow Organization, if you're planning to keep her." "I know what I'm doing," I cut him off sharply. Before Ryan could respond, howls erupted outside the lodge, frantic, urgent calls from our perimeter guards. We both froze, listening. "Intruders?" Ryan suggested, reaching for his weapon. I shook my head, something cold settling in my gut. Something else. We rushed from the room, racing down the corridor to Scarlett's quarters. I threw open the door, scanning the seemingly empty room. The bed appeared occupied, a form lying beneath the blankets. "Scarlett?" I called, storming toward the bed. I yanked back the covers to find only pillows arranged to mimic a sleeping body. Cursing, I searched the room, finally discovering Melissa unconscious and bound in the bathroom. "She's gone," I snarled, fury rising within me. "She knocked out Melissa and escaped." Ryan quickly checked the fallen Beta's pulse. "She's alive, just out cold." More howls from outside demanded our attention. We rushed to the main entrance where one of my guards was waiting, his expression urgent. "There's Alpha, we spotted her in the forest," he reported. "She's moving east toward the ravine." "How long ago?" I demanded. "Just minutes, Alpha. We can see her flashlight moving through the trees." "Gather the men," I ordered, already moving toward the door. "No one shifts. We can't risk drawing attention from any patrol wolves in the neutral territory. Guns only, and I want her alive and unharmed." Within minutes, we were racing through the forest, following the bobbing light visible through the trees ahead. The freezing night air burned my lungs as I pushed myself to run faster. Ignoring the pain from my various injuries, the silver bullet wound in my shoulder, the bite marks from Scarlett, the exhaustion of days on the run. "She's keeping a steady pace," Ryan noted as we pursued the light, heading straight for the ravine. I frowned, something about this not feeling right. Scarlett was smart, too smart to run in such an obvious direction. And how was she maintaining such a consistent speed through unfamiliar, treacherous terrain? Split up. I ordered my men, half circle around to cut her off. We continued the chase, the light always just out of reach, moving at the same steady pace regardless of the terrain. After nearly an hour of pursuit, my body protesting every step with the silver still in my system from Roman's bullet, Ryan finally voiced what I'd been suspecting. "Darian," he panted, "this doesn't make sense. How is she maintaining that pace without slowing? She's been captive for days. She should be exhausted." I stared at the distant light, the horrible realization dawning. Because that's not Scarlett. Ryan looked at me in confusion. "But the flashlight is a decoy," I growled, turning back toward the lodge. "She's led us away from the hunting lodge deliberately. We're not chasing Scarlett at all." Chapter 185, Dangerous Deception. Right. The cold night air burned my lungs as I followed Darian through the dense forest, my legs aching from the relentless pursuit. For over an hour, we'd been chasing that damn flashlight, bobbing through the trees ahead of us. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. "Alpha," I panted, drawing up alongside Darian. "Don't you think this is strange? The light never gets closer no matter how fast we run." Darian's face was a mask of fury in the moonlight, his amber eyes never leaving the distant glow. "I'm aware," he growled, not breaking stride. "And she's maintaining the exact same pace," I continued, pushing through a thicket of thorny bushes. "No matter the terrain, uphill, downhill, it doesn't matter." One of our enforcers grunted in agreement. "It's like she's not even human, or wolf." I studied the light again. It moved with an unnatural steadiness, never wavering despite the rough terrain. Scarlett had been held captive for days, barely eating, and she'd sustained injuries during her capture. She should be exhausted, slowing down. Yet the light maintained its distance. "Why doesn't she just turn it off?" I finally asked the obvious question. "If she's trying to escape, why keep a light that makes her visible to us?" Darian stopped so abruptly, I nearly collided with his back. The other wolves behind us stumbled to a halt, exchanging confused glances. "Because," Darian said slowly, his voice dangerously soft, "that's not Scarlett." Before I could respond, Darian raised his gun and fired a single shot. The sound echoed through the forest, startling nearby birds into flight. The distant light wobbled, then stopped moving altogether. "Alpha!" I gasped, horrified. "If that is her, Roman will us all." Darian was already moving forward at a run, and we scrambled to follow him. The silver bullet he'd fired would be devastating to any werewolf if he'd just killed Roman Thorne's mate. We reached the location of the now stationary light in minutes. What we found made my jaw drop in disbelief. It wasn't Scarlett. It was a wolf dog, a half-breed that roamed these forests. The animal was unharmed, cowering against a tree with a flashlight tied to its head with strips of fabric. Melissa's phone was strapped to its back with more strips torn from what looked like bed sheets. "Clever little witch," Darian murmured, his voice a mixture of rage and grudging admiration. Jake Turner, one of our enforcers with exceptional tracking abilities, crouched next to the terrified animal. "She must have found it near the lodge," he said, carefully untying the flashlight. "Used it as a decoy to lead us away while she escaped in another direction." "How far could she have gotten?" I asked, my mind racing through the implications of this discovery. Jake sniffed the strips of fabric. "These have her scent, but they're already hours old. She planned this well." Darian kicked a nearby tree, his fury finally boiling over. "Search the dogs," he barked, "and check my study." Within minutes, Jake returned from his reconnoiter of the lodge, his expression grim. "Your spare phone is missing, Alpha," he reported. "The one you keep in the desk drawer." "Track it," Darian ordered immediately. Jake nodded, pulling out his own device and tapping rapidly. After a moment, he looked up, his face pale. "She's 10 kilometers away," he said, disbelief evident in his tone. "Heading northwest, the opposite direction from where we've been chasing this dog." Darian's face contorted with rage. "She's on the road to the neutral territory border." "That's not the worst part," Jake added grimly. "She's taking the small paths that run alongside the road. We can't drive there. We'll have to continue on foot until we reach a suitable road." I could see Darian's control slipping, his wolf pushing against his skin. The amber of his eyes began to glow with an unnatural light. "Alpha," I said carefully, placing a hand on his arm. "We'll find her." Darian shrugged off my touch, his jaw clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding. "Move," he ordered, already setting off at a punishing pace toward the northwest. "Now!" As we raced through the forest, I couldn't help but marvel at Scarlett's ingenuity. She'd managed to outwit Darian and a dozen trained enforcers, creating a perfect diversion that had given her hours of lead time. No wonder Roman Thorne had chosen her as his mate. The woman was as clever as she was defiant. But my admiration was tempered by fear. Darian's obsession with claiming Scarlett was pushing him toward the edge of reason. And when we caught up to her, I wasn't sure what he might do in his current state. "The path connects with Highway 27 in 2 miles, Jake called out from behind me. "We can get the vehicles there and cut her off." Darian didn't respond, his focus entirely on the hunt. His wolf was so close to the surface now I could feel its energy crackling in the air around him. This wasn't just about a promised mate anymore. This was about wounded pride. Scarlett had made a fool of him, and Darian Morrison did not tolerate humiliation. As we pushed through the underbrush, racing against time, I prayed we would reach Scarlett before Roman did. Because if the Shadow King found her first, none of us would live to see the dawn. Scarlett's POV. The tiny flashlight on Melissa's phone cast just enough light to keep me from tripping as I moved along the narrow path. I kept the brightness at its lowest setting, conscious of both conserving battery and avoiding detection. The night was bitterly cold, and my stolen clothes provided little warmth. Every shadow made me tense, every snapping twig sent my heart racing. I'd bought myself time with my dog decoy trick, but I knew Darian would eventually figure it out. The question was whether it had given me enough of a head start. The phone in my hand vibrated suddenly. Unknown number. My breath caught in my throat. Had Darian already discovered his spare phone was missing? Was he tracking me? I declined the call immediately, switching the phone to silent mode. Through our mate bond, I reached out to Roman again, sending him an image of my surroundings and an approximation of my location based on the maps I'd seen in Darian's study. "I'm on a path near Highway 27, I whispered into the darkness, hoping our bond was strong enough to carry the message. Minutes later, the phone vibrated again, same unknown number. This time, instinct told me to answer. "Scarlett." Roman's voice, deep and filled with barely controlled fury, sent relief flooding through me. "Roman," I gasped, tears springing to my eyes. "Where are you?" 10 minutes from Highway 27, he replied, the sound of an engine roaring in the background. "Where exactly are you?" I described my position as best I could, using landmarks I'd passed. "Stay where you are," he commanded. "Hunter and I are coming." "Darian might be tracking this phone," I warned. "I stole it from his study." "Let him come." Roman's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "I've been waiting to get my hands on him." Fear gripped me, not for myself, but for what might happen when these two alphas collided. Roman's rage had been building for days, and Darian was already unhinged. Their confrontation would be catastrophic. "Just get me out of here," I pleaded. "We can deal with Darian later." "Stay hidden," Roman instructed, his voice softening slightly. "I'm almost there." The call ended, and I pressed onwards with renewed determination. The path curved, bringing me closer to the main highway. In the distance, I could see headlights approaching, 2 sets from opposite directions. My heart leaped into my throat. One had to be Roman, which meant the other. "No," I whispered, ducking into the thick underbrush beside the path. "Not now." I crawled deeper into my hiding place, ignoring the scratches from thorny branches. Through gaps in the foliage, I watched as both vehicles slowed to a stop, their headlights illuminating the empty road like spotlights on a stage. From one direction, I recognized Hunter Stone stepping out of a black SUV, his hand resting casually on his holstered gun. Roman followed, his tall figure emanating lethal power, ice-blue eyes scanning the surroundings. From the opposite direction came the worst possible scenario, Darian emerging from a sleek silver car with Ryan Hayes and 3 enforcers flanking him. Despite my predicament, I couldn't help but notice how Darian stood tall and imposing in the harsh glare of the headlights. His longish hair whipped in the cold wind, his stance, wide and confident, despite the exhaustion evident in the set of his shoulders. Even injured and desperate, there was something magnetic about his presence. His wolf's energy crackling dangerously in the night air. Chapter 186, Shadow King's Wrath. My heart pounded against my ribs as I crouched deeper into the bushes. The thorns scratched my skin, but I barely felt the sting. I was too focused on the approaching headlights cutting through the darkness. Darian's silver car pulled up just yards from my hiding spot. I held my breath, praying he couldn't somehow sense my presence through our non-existent promised mate bond he kept insisting upon. The car doors opened. Darian stepped out first, his tall figure silhouetted against the headlights. Ryan Hayes and 3 other enforcers flanked him. Even from this distance, I could feel the rage emanating from him in almost tangible waves. "She's close," Darian growled, his amber eyes scanning the area. "The phone signal is coming from right here." I cursed silently. I should have ditched the stolen phone instead of keeping it, but I'd needed it to contact Roman. "Spread out," Darian ordered his men. "Find her. Now." The rogue wolves fanned out, their movements precise and predatory. One was heading directly toward my hiding spot. I pressed myself lower to the ground, trying to make myself as small as possible. My wolf, Cora, stirred beneath my skin, urging me to run. Panic bubbled up in my throat. If they found me before Roman arrived, I didn't want to think about what Darian might do. His unstable behavior at the hunting lodge had shown me he was capable of anything. I closed my eyes, reaching out through our mate bond. "Roman," I whispered in my mind, "please hurry." As if summoned by my silent plea, a second set of headlights appeared on the road. The sleek black SUV pulled up opposite Darian's car, and my heart leaped when Hunter Stone stepped out first, followed by Roman. Even from my hiding place, I could feel Roman's lethal fury. His tall frame was coiled with tension, his ice-blue eyes glowing slightly in the darkness as he faced Darian. Several Shadow Organization enforcers emerged behind him, their hands resting on their weapons. "Morrison," Roman's voice cut through the night air like a blade. "This ends now." Darian's stance relaxed into an almost casual pose, as if they were old friends meeting for a drink rather than mortal enemies. "Roman Thorne," he replied, his voice mockingly pleasant. "What a surprise. I see you've brought friends to our little reunion." Without warning, Roman drew his gun and fired. The silver bullet whizzed past Darian's ear, so close it must have stirred his hair. Yet Darian didn't flinch. "Your temper hasn't improved, I see," Darian observed, his tone still light despite the obvious danger. "Has the hunt for me these past years made you more irritable, old friend?" Roman's expression remained cold, deadly. "Where is she?" "Who?" Darian asked innocently, though his eyes gleamed with malice. Roman didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Seconds later, a ringing sound came from my hiding place. The stolen phone I'd tucked into my pocket betrayed my location with its shrill tone. Every head turned toward the sound. I knew I couldn't stay hidden any longer. Taking a deep breath, I emerged from the bushes. Twigs and leaves clung to my hair and clothes as I stepped onto the road. "Scarlett," Roman's voice softened when he saw me, though his eyes never left Darian. I ran to him without hesitation, crossing the space between us in seconds. His arms wrapped around me protectively, pulling me against his chest. The familiar scent of him, pine and winter, enveloped me, and our mate bond hummed with intensity at our reunion. "I was so scared," I whispered, burying my face in his chest. My body trembled with relief and residual fear. "He said he'd never let me go back to you." Roman's hold on me tightened. I could feel his fury building, his wolf Logan stirring just beneath the surface of his skin. "You're safe now," he murmured against my hair. "I've got you." How touching, Darian's mocking voice interrupted our moment. The Shadow King rescues his princess. Roman turned me slightly, keeping me securely at his side while facing Darian. With one smooth movement, he passed me to Hunter, who positioned himself protectively in front of me. "We're leaving," Roman stated flatly, his tone brooking no argument. Darian stepped forward, his amber eyes flashing. "That's my promised mate. Where do you think you're taking her?" A muscle jumped in Roman's jaw. "She was never yours, Morrison. Not then, not now." "Liam Thorne promised her to me," Darian insisted, his voice taking on a desperate edge. "Your own father, Roman." He shook my hand and said the words. Roman fired another warning shot, this one kicking up dirt at Darian's feet. The rogue wolves behind Darian tensed, hands moving to their weapons. "My father made a joke at a packed dinner," Roman said coldly. "A joke you and your family twisted into some perverted claim because it served your purpose." Darian's face darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Roman stepped forward, his presence so commanding that Darian's wolves instinctively backed up. "I know exactly what you did, Darian. How you used me to overthrow your own grandfather when you discovered his illegitimate son was trying to claim Alpha status. How you betrayed your own blood for power." The blood drained from Darian's face. This was clearly information he hadn't expected Roman to possess. "Ancient history," Darian recovered quickly, his casual mask slipping back into place. "But the fact remains, you're in my territory now. You can't simply walk away with her." Roman laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Your territory? You're a rogue wolf squatting in the neutral zone. You have no territory, no pack, no legitimate claim to anything, especially not my mate." His emphasis on the word mate made Darian flinch visibly. "By the way," Roman added, almost conversationally, "Eric Blackwood met with your sister Lily about an hour ago. Interesting chat, from what I hear." The effect of these words on Darian was immediate and shocking. His composure shattered, panic flashing across his features. "You're lying," he hissed, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. Roman didn't bother responding. He turned to me, his eyes softening slightly. "Let's go home, little wolf." Without another word, he guided me back to the SUV, Hunter and the enforcers forming a protective barrier between us and Darian's group. As we drove away, I glanced back through the rear window to see Darian frantically dialing his phone. Even from a distance, I could see the moment he received whatever news awaited him on the other end of that call. His face contorted with rage as he hurled his phone to the ground, smashing it against the asphalt. "What happened?" I asked Roman as we sped away. "What was that about, Lily?" Roman's jaw tightened. "Nothing you need to worry about now. You're safe. That's all that matters." I wanted to press for more information, but my body suddenly felt heavy with exhaustion. The adrenaline that had kept me going these past days was rapidly dissipating, leaving me drained and shaky. Roman must have noticed because he pulled me closer, cradling me against him. "Rest," he murmured. "We have a long journey back." "Don't let me go," I whispered, clutching his shirt with desperate fingers. "Please." "I won't," he promised, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Never again." Throughout the journey back to Roman's seaside villa, I remained in his arms. Even when we transferred to a helicopter for speed, I refused to let go of him, clinging to his clothes like a frightened wolf pup. The thought of being separated from him again filled me with a terror I couldn't explain. Roman stroked my hair gently as the helicopter cut through the night sky. "Everything's fine now, little wolf," he whispered. "You're safe." His gentle reassurance broke something inside me. Tears I'd been holding back for days suddenly burst forth, streaming down my face as I threw my arms around his neck. "I thought that bastard Darian would separate us again," I sobbed, my words tumbling out between gasps. "I thought I'd never see you again. Not after what happened 3 years ago when Lily forced me to leave the pack." Roman held me tighter, letting me cry out all the fear and pain of the past week. He understood what I couldn't fully express, that Darian's had reopened old wounds from our first separation, wounds that had never fully healed. Through our mate bond, I felt his silent promise. No one would ever tear us apart again. Chapter 187, Intimate Reunions. The helicopter landed near Roman's villa, blades slowing to a stop in the night air. I was trembling, my fingers locked tightly on Roman's shirt. Roman lifted me from my seat, carrying me toward the entrance. His strong arms felt like the safest place in the world. "I can walk," I whispered, not really meaning it. "I know," he replied, making no move to put me down. The staff stood at attention as we entered. I hid my face against Roman's shoulder, not wanting them to see my tears or bruises from Darian's rough handling. Roman carried me straight to his bedroom and shut the door. Only then did he set me down, his eyes scanning me intensely. "Did he hurt you?" The question came out as a growl, his wolf Logan barely contained. I shook my head. "Not like that, but Roman, I was so scared." My voice broke, and suddenly I was crying again. All the fear and tension crashed over me in a wave. Roman pulled me close, one hand cradling my head, the other around my waist. His lips pressed against my forehead, then found my mouth in a gentle kiss. "You're safe now, little wolf," he murmured. "No one will ever take you from me again." Our mate bond hummed with intensity. I pressed closer, needing to feel his warmth, to know he was real and not a desperate dream. The kiss deepened, Roman's control slipping. His hands tightened around me, and I melted against him, forgetting everything else. 3 sharp knocks broke the moment. "Alpha," Hunter called from outside, "we have a situation that requires your attention." Roman pulled back, his jaw tight with frustration. His wolf clearly didn't want to let me go, but his alpha duties couldn't be ignored. "Give me a minute," he said tersely. He turned back to me, gently brushing hair from my face. "You should rest or take a shower. You've been through a lot." The idea of washing away Darian's scent was too tempting. I nodded, stepping reluctantly from his embrace. "I won't be long," he promised, kissing my forehead once more before leaving. In the bathroom, I scrubbed my body 3 times, as if I could erase all traces of captivity. When I finished, I realized I hadn't brought clean clothes. Wrapping a towel around my hair, I decided to quickly grab something from the bedroom. I opened the door and stepped out naked, only to freeze in horror. Roman was sitting on the bed, talking on the phone. He turned at the sound of the door, his eyes widening. "I'll call you back," he said, never taking his eyes off me. I yelped in embarrassment, darting back into the bathroom and slamming the door. My cheeks burned as I grabbed 2 towels, wrapping one around my body and keeping the other for my hair. Taking a deep breath, I re-entered the bedroom, clutching the towel tightly. "I thought you'd still be with Hunter," I said, trying to sound casual despite my flaming face. Roman smiled, clearly amused. Clearly. He walked toward me, his eyes taking in my towel-clad form with obvious approval. The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. "Your injuries still hurt?" he asked, touching a fading bruise on my shoulder. I swallowed hard. "Not much. My wolf heals quickly." "So I've noticed," he said, continuing his gentle exploration. "Yet you still use them as an excuse." "Excuse for what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. Roman pulled me closer. "For avoiding this," he murmured before capturing my lips. Unlike our earlier kiss, this one was hungry and demanding. His hands slid to my hips, pulling me against him as our mate bond flared. I responded eagerly, my fingers in his hair as I surrendered to this sensation. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Roman rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed. "I should find you some clothes," he said, not letting me go. "Or you could dry my hair," I suggested, not wanting to leave his arms. Roman laughed, warm and genuine. "Is that an order, little wolf?" "Maybe," I teased, feeling lighter than I had in days. He sat me on the bed and got a hairdryer. I closed my eyes as he dried my hair, his fingers massaging my scalp in a way that almost made me purr. "We'll need to leave for the Eastern Territories soon," Roman said. "But first, we'll visit Mother." I opened my eyes in surprise. "Luna Catherine? I thought she was in seclusion in the valley." Roman nodded. "She is. But after what happened with Darian, she'll want to see you herself." The mention of Darian made me shiver despite the warm air from the dryer. "Has he been caught?" "Not yet," Roman admitted darkly, "but he will be." I remembered Darian's possessive rage, his insistence that I was his promised mate. Even now, safe with Roman, those amber eyes filled with obsession made my wolf uneasy. "I've missed Luna Catherine," I said, changing the subject. "It's been too long." "She's missed you too," Roman replied, switching off the dryer. "She blames me for letting you stay in the Northern Territories instead of bringing you home sooner." I turned to face him, wrapping my arms around his waist. "I chose to stay. After everything with the winter pack, I needed time." Roman's expression softened. "I know, but I should have protected you better." "You did," I insisted. "You came for me. You always do." He held me tighter, kissing the top of my head. "Always, little wolf." We stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, our mate bond pulsing with contentment. Then I had a mischievous thought. "It wasn't your fault," I said. "It was that black-hearted Darian Morrison. He's the one who forced me to leave the pack years ago with his sister's schemes." A dangerous gleam entered Roman's eyes. "Black-hearted, is he? And what am I then, little wolf?" I pretended to think. Perhaps just dark gray-hearted? Without warning, Roman picked me up and tossed me onto the bed. I bounced once, laughing, before he was over me, his powerful frame caging me in. "Dark, gray-hearted?" he growled playfully. "I'll show you how dark my heart is." My breath caught as he leaned down, his intentions clear in his hungry eyes. I raced toward Roman's villa after hearing about the violent confrontation. The reports were confused. Something about Scarlett being kidnapped and a rogue wolf named Darian Morrison. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. If anything had happened to Scarlett, I couldn't finish the thought. Despite everything between us, her rejection, my relationship with Grace, the idea of Scarlett in danger made my wolf howl with distress. At the villa, Shadow Organization enforcers stopped me at the gate. "I need to see Scarlett Winters," I demanded. "I'm Alexander Amber, Alpha of the Amber Pack." "We know who you are," an enforcer replied coldly. "You're not authorized to enter." I spotted Emma Chase walking to her car with files. If anyone would tell me about Scarlett, it would be her friend. "Emma," I called, jogging toward her. "Emma, wait." She turned, her expression changing to contempt when she saw me. "Alexander Amber, what brings you here? Shouldn't you be with your ill mate?" Her words stung, but I ignored them. "Is Scarlett all right? I heard she was abducted." Emma's eyes narrowed. Where was this concern when the Winter Pack was hurting her, or when Grace was plotting against her? "That's not fair," I protested weakly. "I've always cared about Scarlett." "Have you?" Emma challenged. "You have a funny way of showing it." I ran a hand through my hair. "Just tell me if she's okay. Please." Emma's expression softened slightly. "She's fine. Roman rescued her. She's safe now." Relief flooded me so intensely I had to lean against my car. "Thank the moon, dude. I need to see her." "No, you don't," Emma cut me off. "The last thing Scarlett needs is to see you. She's been through enough." "But the preparations for our mating ceremony..." Emma laughed without humor. "You still don't get it, do you? Those preparations were never for you, Alexander." I stared, confused. "What do you mean?" She shook her head, showing pity and exasperation. "People only realize what they treasure after losing it, but Scarlett never belonged to you anyway." With those words, Emma walked to her car, leaving me standing there with growing loss. As she drove away, her meaning sank in. The preparations Scarlett had been making weren't for our arranged mating. They were for someone else, someone who had just rescued her, Roman Thorne. The realization hit me hard. Scarlett had never given her heart to me, not even for a moment. It had always belonged to someone else. Chapter 188, Bloody Revelations. The security perimeter around Roman Thorne's seaside villa was impenetrable. I paced back and forth near my car. Every minute I waited felt like torture. Was she okay? Had that rogue wolf hurt her? I'd been trying to get past the guards for hours. Their gazes remained cold and unwavering. "No entry without Alpha Thorne's permission," they kept repeating. My status as the Alpha of the Amber Pack meant nothing here. This was Shadow Organization territory now, and their loyalty was to Roman alone. The heavy iron gates finally opened, and I straightened immediately. Instead of Scarlett, Aiden Walsh emerged, his medical bag clutched in one hand. I rushed forward before the gates could close again. "Aiden!" I called out. "Wait!" He turned, his expression shifting from surprise to thinly veiled contempt when he recognized me. "Alexander Amber," he said flatly. "What are you doing here?" I reached him, trying to look past the gates before they closed completely. "Is Scarlett all right? I heard she was kidnapped by Darian Morrison." Aiden's eyes narrowed. "Why do you care? Shouldn't you be with your silver-poisoned mate?" The mention of Grace stung, but I pushed past it. "Please, I need to know if she's okay." "She's fine," he replied curtly, moving to walk past me. I grabbed his arm. "I need to see her." Something dangerous flashed in Aiden's usually playful eyes. He jerked his arm free with surprising strength. "Listen carefully, Alexander Amber," he said, voice dropping to a cold whisper. "Scarlett Winters is a pure-blood Thorne heir. She's one of the treasured protégés of the Shadow King and Luna Catherine from the Eastern Territories." I stared at him, trying to process his words. "What are you talking about? She's from the Winter Pack." "By birth only," Aiden cut me off. "Her loyalty, her heart, her entire being belongs to the Thorne Pack. Always has." My wolf Mason howled with unexpected distress beneath my skin. "I need to speak with her. Just 5 minutes." She has nothing to do with you anymore, Aiden stated bluntly. The finality in his tone hit me like a physical blow. Stay away from her if you know what's good for you and your pack. He walked away, leaving me standing there with an ache in my chest I couldn't quite understand. Why did his words hurt so much? Scarlett and I had an arrangement, nothing more. Our engagement had been political from the start. I had Grace, my true mate. Yet as I watched Aiden disappear down the road, Mason continued to whine pitifully beneath my skin. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Grace's name flashed on the screen. Alexander, her voice was weak, barely above a whisper. Where are you? I need you. Reality crashed back. The Winter Pack was in crisis. No healing center or healer in the Northern Territories would treat them, not after Roman's tacit ban had spread throughout the region. I'm trying to find help, I said, heading back to my car. How are you feeling? Worse, Grace whispered. The silver, it's spreading. I can feel it moving through my blood. Alexander, I think I'm dying. Fear gripped me. Don't say that. I'll find a solution. The Winter Pack needs you, she continued, her voice breaking with tears. Daniel's hands are ruined and I can barely move. Sarah is distraught and Marcus is absent. I started the engine, my mind racing. I'll be there soon. Just hold on. Alexander. Grace's voice dropped even lower. If Roman won't help us, we're finished. The pack is falling apart. The truth of her words settled heavily on me. My alpha authority, my family's position in the Northern Territories, none of it mattered against Roman's influence. The Shadow Organization's reach was absolute. I'll find a way, I promised, though the words rang hollow even to my own ears. As I drove away from Roman's villa, I glanced back one last time, hoping for a glimpse of Scarlett. The gates remained firmly closed. My last resort was clear. I had to speak directly with Roman Thorne. Scarlett's pew. Roman's arms around me felt like safety itself. After days in Darian's captivity, being here in Roman's bed surrounded by his scent was like coming home. My wolf Cora purred contentedly beneath my skin. Are you sure you're all right? Roman asked, his fingers gently tracing the healing bruise on my wrist where Darian had grabbed me. I nodded, snuggling closer to his warmth. I'm fine, just tired. The phone on the nightstand rang, breaking our peaceful moment. Roman glanced at it with irritation. Ignore it, I murmured, not wanting to let go of him. The ringing stopped, then started again immediately. It might be important, I sighed reluctantly. You should answer. Roman reached for the phone, keeping me pressed against him with his other arm. His expression darkened as he checked the caller ID. Alexander Amber, he said, his voice hardening. My body tensed involuntarily. What does he want? Roman's ice-blue eyes studied me carefully. Should I find out? I hesitated, then nodded. Whatever Alexander wanted, it was better to deal with it now than let it fester. Roman answered, putting the call on speaker. Amber? Thorne. Alexander's voice sounded strained, desperate. I need to speak with Scarlett. She's right here, Roman replied coolly. Whatever you have to say, you can say to both of us. There was a brief pause. Scarlett, are you all right? I heard about what happened with Darian Morrison. I'm fine, I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. Roman rescued me. I'm glad, Alexander said, though his tone suggested something more complex than simple relief. Look, I need to ask, the Winter Pack. What about them? Roman interjected sharply. They need help. Grace's condition is worsening, and Daniel can't get proper treatment for his hands. Every healing center has turned them away. A cold satisfaction settled in my chest. The Winter Pack, who had tried to destroy me at every turn, was now experiencing the consequences of their actions. That's unfortunate, Roman replied, his tone making it clear he found it anything but. What does this have to do with us? They're Scarlett's biological family, Alexander pressed. Surely that means something. Roman's gaze met mine, a silent question in his eyes. I knew he would honor whatever I decided, despite his personal feelings toward the Winter Pack. No, I said firmly. They're not my family. They made that perfectly clear over the past 2 years. Scarlett, please. Alexander's voice grew more desperate. Grace lived with you for years. You shared a pack bond. A pack that tried to kill me multiple times. I cut him off. A pack that covered up attempts on my life. A pack that chose her over me at every opportunity. Alexander fell silent. Blood means nothing, I continued, the words pouring out after years of suppression. The Winter Pack made their choice when they protected Grace after she orchestrated that rogue wolf attack against me. They made their choice when they forced me into an arranged mating with you to secure their position. Roman's arm tightened around me protectively, his eyes gleaming with pride at my strength. But they're still your pack by birth, Alexander tried one last time. Doesn't that count for something? Roman's patience visibly snapped. Let me make something perfectly clear, Amber, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerously soft level. If the Winter Pack weren't her blood relations, their fate would have been much quicker and far less painful. The underlying threat wasn't lost on Alexander. His sharp intake of breath was audible through the speaker. I understand, he finally said, defeat evident in his tone. I apologize for disturbing you both. Roman ended the call without another word, tossing the phone aside. He turned his full attention back to me, his gaze softening as he cupped my face in his hands. You never cease to amaze me, little wolf, he murmured, a hint of admiration in his voice. The intensity in his eyes sent a shiver through me. Years of restraint between us, years of fighting our feelings, of pretending we were just adopted siblings, seemed to dissolve in that moment. Roman pulled me closer, his lips finding mine with fierce possessiveness. Our mate bond hummed powerfully, the connection between us strengthening with every touch. His hands moved along my body with reverent purpose, each caress awakening sensations I'd only dreamed about. The claiming marks on my neck glowed warmly as Roman's fingers traced them. A soft gasp escaped me as he pressed his lips to the sensitive skin there. My wolf Cora responded immediately, rising to meet his touch. Roman, I whispered, surrendering completely to the moment to him. Our bodies moved together in perfect rhythm, finding a harmony that seemed destined since the beginning. Every barrier between us finally fell away, all the years of pretense, of denial, of fighting what we both had always known was meant to be. In his arms, with our mate bond singing between us, I finally found where I truly belonged. Not with the Winter Pack, who had rejected me, not in an arranged mating with Alexander, but here with the man who had always been my true home. The claiming marks glowed even brighter as our connection deepened, sealing what we both had known for years. We were meant for each other. Always had been. Always would be. Chapter 189, Bitter Revelations. The bitter winter wind cut through my jacket as I stood outside my pack house, staring at my phone. No new messages. No missed calls. Nothing. Scarlett was gone. I'd heard the news through pack channels this morning. Roman Thorne had left the Northern Territories, taking Scarlett with him, back to the Eastern Territories, back to where she truly belonged, according to Aidan Walsh. Snow fell heavily around me, covering the ground in a thick white blanket that matched the cold emptiness spreading through my chest. My wolf Mason paced restlessly beneath my skin, agitated in a way I couldn't fully understand. Alpha, Jason Reed called from the doorway. Your car is ready. I nodded, slipping my useless phone back into my pocket. The Winter Pack was waiting, and Grace needed me. That's where my focus should be, not on Scarlett Winters and the strange hollow feeling her departure had left behind. The drive to the Winter Pack house was silent and tense. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the steering wheel, thoughts churning. Why did it matter so much that she was gone? Our engagement had been political from the start. I had Grace, my true mate. This was for the best. Yet Mason continued his restless pacing beneath my skin. As I pulled up to the Winter Pack house, shouting echoed from inside. I paused at the entrance, recognizing Sarah Winters' furious voice. Twins? You have twin children with Jennifer Moore? Your financial advisor? Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. How could you, Marcus? How could you do this to our family? I should have announced my presence, but something held me back. I stood frozen in the entryway, an unwilling witness to the Winter Pack's implosion. Our family? Marcus Winters' voice was bitter and cold. What family, Sarah? You drove our biological daughter away. You favored Grace over our own flesh and blood. And now what do we have? Our son's hands ruined, possibly permanently. Our adopted daughter dying from silver poisoning. And our true daughter, the one you rejected, is now mate to the most powerful alpha in the territories. There was the sound of something shattering against a wall. Don't you dare blame me, Sarah hissed. We both made decisions about Scarlett. Decisions you pushed for, Marcus roared. And look where it's gotten us. Our pack is falling apart. Daniel can't shift, can't hold a pen, can't perform the most basic tasks. His future as pack heir is finished. I cleared my throat loudly, finally announcing my presence. The argument halted immediately. Sarah appeared in the hallway, her face tear-stained but quickly composing into a polite mask. "Alexander, thank you for coming. Grace is upstairs." Without acknowledging the obvious tension, I nodded and headed up the stairs. Mason was still unsettled, picking up on the discord and despair saturating the Winterpack house. Daniel's room was at the end of the hall. I knocked gently before entering. The Winterpack heir sat propped against pillows, both hands heavily bandaged. His face was pale, eyes sunken with pain and bitter resignation. "Alexander," he greeted me flatly, "come to see the crippled wolf." I stepped closer, noticing how the bandages extended past his wrists. "How bad is it?" Daniel's laugh was hollow. "Bad enough. Silver-laced alpha power burns. The healers say even with our wolf regeneration, I'll never have full function again." The severity of his injuries stunned me. Roman Thorne's retribution had been thorough and merciless. "I'm sorry," I offered, knowing how inadequate the words were. Daniel's eyes flashed with sudden anger. "Did you know Scarlett orchestrated the revelation of my father's affair? Timing it perfectly with everything else falling apart?" I frowned, unsure if this was true or Daniel's pain talking. "How would she have known about your father's?" "She has eyes everywhere," he spat. "Emma Chase was seen at Shadow Mall the same day my father was there with his other family." His voice cracked slightly before hardening again. "She wanted to destroy us completely." I remained silent, uncertain how to respond. It seemed implausible that Scarlett would go to such lengths, yet the timing was suspicious. "Did you know she apparently has a promised mate from the Morrison family in the Eastern Territories?" Daniel continued, his eyes fixed on my face to gauge my reaction. "The second most powerful family there after the Thornes. This whole engagement with you was never real." The words hit me like a physical blow. Mason howled with betrayal beneath my skin, making me wince. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice harsher than intended. Daniel's expression shifted to cruel satisfaction. "Didn't know that part, did you? Yeah, turns out the guy who kidnapped her, Darian Morrison, claims he's her promised mate from years ago, some arrangement made by Liam Thorne himself." My mind spun trying to process this information. Scarlett promised to someone else all along, while engaged to me, while clearly intimate with Roman. "How do you know this?" I managed to ask. "Pack channels." Daniel replied with a shrug that clearly caused him pain. Grace heard it from Ayla Quinn, who heard it from one of the shadow enforcers. I turned toward the window, trying to hide the confusion on my face, so many pieces suddenly shifting, revealing a picture I never expected. "Alexander," Daniel's voice softened slightly. "I know you had some feelings for her, but she was never loyal to the Northern Territories. She was never loyal to you." Outside, snow continued to fall, covering everything in cold, unforgiving white. The gentle hum of the helicopter's engines filled the cabin as I lay in Roman's arms, my body pleasantly sore from our lovemaking. 2 hours of passionate reunion had left me feeling boneless and completely satisfied. Through the windows, the landscape changed beneath us, leaving behind the Northern Territories that had brought me so much pain. Roman's fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "You never did tell me how you managed to escape from Darian's hunting lodge," he murmured against my hair. It was heavily guarded. I smiled against his chest, remembering the frantic plan I'd cobbled together. "I used some of Natalie's training." Roman prompted, sounding genuinely curious. "Remember those animal communication lessons she insisted on? The ones I complained about constantly?" I laughed softly. "Turns out they're pretty useful when you need to create a distraction." Roman shifted slightly to look down at me. "You used animals to escape?" I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. Darian had these wolfhounds patrolling the outer perimeter. I managed to lure one close to my window with some jerky I found in the kitchen before I blew it up. "Clever little wolf," Roman murmured appreciatively. I tied Melissa's phone and a flashlight to the dog, then sent it running in the opposite direction from where I planned to escape, I continued. Darian and his men chased after it for hours while I slipped away. Roman's chest rumbled with quiet laughter. "So that's why they were so far from your actual location." It was part of the harsh training Natalie put me through years ago, I admitted, grateful now for my adopted sister's strict teachings. All those exercises that seemed excessive at the time, they saved my life. Roman's arms tightened around me. Remind me to thank her properly when we see her. I sighed contentedly, but as the helicopter banked gently, a sudden surge of anxiety gripped me. The memory of being torn away from Roman by Darian was still too fresh, too raw. My fingers curled into his shirt instinctively. "You have to hold me," I whispered, hating how vulnerable I sounded but unable to stop myself. "I don't want to be apart from you." Roman's eyes softened as he looked down at me, understanding without me having to explain further. Our mate bond hummed with intensity between us. "I'm right here, little wolf," he murmured, pressing a tender kiss to my forehead. "Nothing will separate us again." I relaxed against him, breathing in his familiar scent of pine and winter, feeling safer than I had in days. My eyelids grew heavy as exhaustion finally caught up with me. "Rest," Roman whispered, his voice filled with a unique affection he showed to no one else. "We'll be home soon." Through half-closed eyes, I watched the territorial borders pass beneath us through the helicopter window. Each mile took us further from the Northern Territories and closer to the Eastern Territories, to the place where we both truly belonged. As sleep claimed me, nestled securely in Roman's protective embrace, I found myself finally believing that perhaps the worst was behind us. We were going home, together. Roman's arms remained firmly around me, his steady heartbeat beneath my ear the most soothing lullaby imaginable. Our interaction confirmed what Alexander had suspected. Our relationship had always gone beyond that of adopted siblings. We had always belonged to each other, even when forced apart. Now nothing would separate us again. Chapter 190, Confrontation and Revelation. The Winterpack house felt like a mausoleum. Death and decay hung in the air, clinging to every surface. After my disturbing conversation with Daniel, I needed to see Grace with my own eyes. I climbed the stairs slowly, Mason restless beneath my skin. The wolf sensed something was wrong, had been wrong for a long time. Each step felt heavier than the last. As I approached Grace's door, her voice drifted through the She was on the phone, her tone bitter and strained. "$1 million? Are you insane?" Grace hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "I already paid you enough for a job you failed to complete." I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Something told me to wait, to listen. "Don't threaten me," she continued, her voice dropping lower. "I'm dying from silver poisoning while that Scarlett lives her perfect life with Roman." My blood turned cold. Mason went completely still beneath my skin, listening intently. "You were supposed to kill her," Grace's voice cracked with fury. "Those rogue wolves I hired were supposed to eliminate her permanently, not just injure her. Now look at me. This silver poisoning is punishment for my failure." The world tilted around me. My vision narrowed to a pinpoint. Mason surged forward with a roar that threatened to tear through my human form. I slammed the door open, making Grace jump violently on her bed. Her pale face drained of what little color remained when she saw my expression. "Alexander," she gasped, quickly ending the call. "I didn't know you were. You tried to have Scarlett killed?" The words came out as a growl, barely human. My alpha power filled the room, making the furniture tremble. Grace's mouth opened and closed, her eyes wide with fear. "It's not what you think. I can explain." "Explain what? That you hired rogues to murder your pack sister?" Mason was pushing against my skin, claws threatening to emerge. "The woman I was engaged to marry?" "She was never your true mate," Grace cried desperately. "I am. She just wanted our pack's position, our resources. She never cared about you." The bitter irony of her words wasn't lost on me. Had I not said the exact same things to justify our relationship? "She was a child when those rogues attacked her," I said, my voice deadly calm now. "A child under pack protection." Grace's face hardened suddenly, defiance replacing fear. "She was never one of us. She was just a mistake, a changeling who should have died with those rogues." Mason roared inside me, demanding justice for this betrayal of pack law, of everything sacred to our kind. I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. The beautiful face I'd once thought I loved now seemed twisted, revealing the ugliness beneath. "Alexander, wait," Grace called desperately as I reached the door. "You can't leave me like this. I'm dying." Without looking back, I slammed the door shut behind me. The frame cracked from the force, wood splintering along the wall. Sarah Winter appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her face anxious. "Alexander, is everything all right?" We heard. I walked past her without acknowledgement, my alpha power crackling around me like electricity. The front door flew open before I even touched it, responding to the surge of energy radiating from my skin. Outside in the bitter cold, I finally let Mason howl, a sound of grief, rage, and terrible understanding. I had been blind, so willfully, foolishly blind, Sarah's POV. Alexander stormed past me like I was nothing, not even worth acknowledging. His alpha power crackled so strongly it made my hair stand on end. Something terrible had happened. I rushed up the stairs as fast as my tired legs would carry me. The door to Grace's room was damaged, the frame cracked and splintered. Inside, my daughter was sobbing uncontrollably, her thin body shaking with each gasp. "Grace!" I hurried to her side, gathering her into my arms. "What happened? What did Alexander say?" Her skin burned with fever, the silver poisoning advancing through her system. Each day she grew weaker, paler, more ghost than wolf. "He knows," she choked out between sobs. "He knows everything." Cold fear gripped my heart. "Knows what, sweetheart?" Grace looked up at me, her beautiful blue eyes swimming with tears and something darker, something like hate. "About the rogues. About what I did to Scarlett years ago." Her voice broke on the name. "She's taken everything from me, Mother. Everything." I held Grace tighter as she dissolved into fresh sobs. "Shh, it's not your fault." "I'm dying from this silver curse," she cried, desperately clutching at my sleeve. "And she still won't leave me alone. Even with Roman by her side, she won't stop until I'm ruined completely." Rage burned in my chest, an old, familiar feeling whenever I thought of Scarlett Winters, the baby who should have been a blessing but turned out to be a curse on our family. If only we'd eliminated her when we discovered the switch all those years ago. Marcus had been too soft, too concerned with pack law and appearances. "She's still our blood," he'd insisted. Blood meant nothing. Grace was my daughter in all ways that mattered. I had raised her, loved her, shaped her into the perfect she-wolf. And now she was dying while Scarlett thrived. "Don't worry," I whispered, stroking Grace's golden hair. "This isn't over. I promise you that." Grace's sobs eventually subsided as she drifted into an uneasy sleep, exhausted by pain and emotion. I carefully tucked the blankets around her frail form before leaving the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. How had it come to this? Our pack falling apart, my daughter dying, my mate betraying me with another woman, and at the center of it all, Scarlett Winters, the child who should never have survived. I woke to the gentle vibration of the helicopter touching down. My head rested against Roman's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. For a moment, I kept my eyes closed, savoring the safety of his embrace. 8 hours had passed since we'd left the Northern Territories. 8 hours since I'd escaped Darian Morrison's clutches. The memory made me press closer to Roman, seeking his warmth. "We've arrived. Little wolf," Roman murmured, his fingers gently stroking my hair. I blinked sleepily, looking up at him. "Already?" He smiled down at me, his ice blue eyes softening in a way they did only for me. "You slept through most of the journey." My stomach growled loudly in response, making Roman chuckle. I flushed, embarrassed. "Someone's hungry," he teased, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Starving," I admitted, stretching in his arms. Darian's idea of hospitality didn't include proper meals. Roman's eyes darkened at the mention of Darian, but his voice remained gentle. "What would you like to eat?" I thought for a moment, memories of comfort and home flooding back. Venison stew, the way Cook made it when I first came to the Thorne pack. A smile played at the corner of his mouth. "You've become easier to please." "What do you mean?" I asked, sitting up properly. "When you lived in the European territories with Natalie, you were quite the pampered young wolf," Roman said, his tone light but his eyes watching me carefully. "Nothing but the finest would do." I ducked my head, remembering my stubborn, prideful younger self. "I was horrible, wasn't I?" "You were magnificent," Roman corrected, tilting my chin up. "Always. Even when you were driving the entire pack mad with your demands." The helicopter had completely stopped now, the engines winding down. Through the window, I could see the familiar landscape of the Eastern Territories, rolling forests dusted with snow, mountains rising in the distance. Home. After so long, I was finally home. We should get you dressed properly, Roman said, reaching for my coat. It's colder here than in the Northern Territories. I started to protest that I could dress myself, but the feeling of Roman helping me into my clothes was too comforting to resist. His hands were gentle as he layered me in warm garments, his movements efficient and caring. I can do it myself, you know, I said softly, even as I lifted my arms to let him pull a sweater over my head. Roman paused, his hands resting on my shoulders. I know. Sometimes I forget you're all grown up now. There was something in his voice, a mixture of pride and nostalgia that made my heart ache sweetly. Remember when you used to help me get ready for training? I asked, smiling at the memory. I was always so sleepy, and you'd practically have to dress me while I was still half asleep. And you'd complain the entire time, Roman added, his eyes crinkling with amusement, telling me the sun wasn't even up yet, so why should you be? I laughed, leaning into his touch. I was terrible. You were perfect, he countered, wrapping a scarf around my neck with careful precision. You still are. The tenderness in his voice made my chest tight with emotion. After so many years of hiding our feelings, of pretending we were just adopted siblings, it felt miraculous to be able to love him openly. Roman helped me into my coat, his hands lingering on my shoulders. Just as he leaned down to kiss me, a knock sounded at the door. Alpha, Hunter's voice called. We've arrived at Thornpack territory. Chapter 191, Unexpected Developments. The gentle hum of the helicopter engines had become a comforting background noise as I stood beside Roman, watching the Eastern Territory unfold beneath us. After days in Darian's captivity, being back in familiar lands with Roman felt like a dream. Our moment of peace was interrupted by Hunter Stone approaching with purpose in his stride. His usually stoic face bore subtle lines of concern. Alpha, Hunter said, his voice low and urgent. There's a matter that requires your immediate attention. Roman's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His ice-blue eyes met mine with reluctance. I could feel his hesitation through our mate bond. Go, I urged him softly. I'll be fine. With a slight nod, Roman followed Hunter out of the helicopter, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sank into one of the plush seats, allowing my body to rest. Every muscle ached from the stress of captivity and escape. My phone buzzed in my pocket, surprising since I thought I'd lost it during my... Roman must have arranged for a replacement. The screen displayed Emma's name. Emma? I answered immediately. Are you okay? Scarlett. Thank the moon you're safe. Emma's voice came through, breathless with relief. I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm back in the Eastern Territories now, I told her. With Roman. Good. Because things have gone completely insane here, Emma said. The winter pack is imploding. My wolf Cora perked up with interest. What's happening? Emma's laugh was short and without humor. Where do I start? Sarah Winter just discovered that Marcus has been having an affair with their financial advisor, Jennifer Moore, and they have twins, a boy and girl. Twins? I couldn't hide my surprise. Marcus actually managed to father 2 more children at his age? Apparently his virility wasn't the problem in their marriage, Emma said dryly. Sarah's beside herself. But that's not all. Grace is insisting on returning to the winter pack house even though her condition is getting worse. Why would she do that? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Grace had always been dramatic, always needing to be the center of attention. To make things worse for Daniel, probably, Emma replied. He's already suffering with his hands, and now she wants to be there too, forcing Sarah to divide her attention. I shook my head, unsurprised by Grace's selfishness. And Alexander? Is he still playing the devoted mate? Emma's voice dropped. That's the strangest part. He visited the winter house yesterday and left absolutely furious. I mean, rage-filled. He actually kicked over their ceremonial pack offering bowl at the doorstep. Shattered it completely. I sat up straighter. Alexander broke a pack offering bowl? That's serious. Such actions were considered deeply disrespectful in wolf culture. Whatever happened must have been severe. No one knows exactly what triggered it, Emma continued. But he went straight to Grace's room, and a few minutes later came storming out like his wolf was about to tear through his skin. Before I could respond, I heard Roman's footsteps approaching. Emma, I need to go. Keep me updated. Will do. Stay safe, Scarlett. I hung up just as Roman returned. His expression was carefully controlled, but I could sense tension radiating from him. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "Change of plans," he said, his voice formal in a way that told me this was Alpha business. "We need to fly directly to Shadow Valley instead of stopping at the pack house." My stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, reminding me I hadn't eaten a proper meal since before Darian abducted me. Roman's expression softened. "Food will be delivered soon. I know you're tired and hungry, but this can't wait." I nodded, trusting him completely. "Is everything okay?" "Just a security matter," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I knew better than to push. Roman sat beside me, his large frame dwarfing the helicopter seat. His gaze fell to the claiming marks on my neck, and his expression shifted to one of concern. "Are you in pain?" he asked, his fingers hovering above my skin, not quite touching. My face flushed instantly as memories of our passionate mating flooded back. The claiming marks were still new, still tender. "A little," I admitted, "but Cora is helping the healing process." As if acknowledging her name, my wolf purred happily beneath my skin. Despite our ordeal, she felt safe and content in our mate's presence. Roman's touch was feather-light as he examined the marks. "They're healing well," he murmured, his voice dropping to a tone that made my skin tingle. I cleared my throat, suddenly very aware of how small the helicopter cabin was. "I should freshen up before we reach Shadow Valley." A knowing smile touched his lips as I hurried to the small bathroom. Once inside, I splashed cold water on my face, trying to calm the heat in my cheeks. The reflection in the mirror showed me a woman changed, stronger, more certain, with claiming marks that finally made visible what I had felt in my heart for years. As soon as Scarlett disappeared into the bathroom, I pulled out my phone and dialed Aiden Walsh. He answered on the second ring. "Your Majesty, to what do I owe this royal summons?" His playful tone grated on my already tense nerves. "I need healing herbs," I said curtly. "For Scarlett." There was a pause. "Is she hurt?" All humor vanished from his voice. "Nothing serious," I assured him. "She has claiming marks. They're still new, and with everything that happened with Darian—" "Say no more," Aiden interrupted. "Though I must say I'm surprised. The Shadow King worried about being too rough with his precious little mate?" A dangerous growl rumbled in my chest. "Watch yourself, Walsh." Fine, he said quickly. "I'll bring my special blend. But next time, maybe keep your alpha strength in check. Not everyone can handle the Shadow King's lack of restraint." I ended the call before I could threaten to put a silver bullet between his eyes. Aiden Walsh would never learn when to stop pushing. The helicopter pilot signaled that we'd be taking off shortly. I ordered food to be prepared and delivered before Scarlett returned from the bathroom. Scarlett's POV. When I emerged from the bathroom, my phone rang again. Emma's name flashed on the screen. "Emma? What now?" I answered, concerned by the second call so soon after our previous conversation. "Scarlett, help!" Emma's voice was strained. I could hear a commotion in the background. "Sarah Winter is here, and she's gone completely crazy. She won't let me leave." "Ow! Stop it!" "Emma, what's happening?" Alarm shot through me. "Please, I need to speak with my daughter." Sarah's voice came through the phone, desperate and tearful. "Scarlett, please. Grace is dying from the silver poisoning, and Daniel's hands, they're ruined. We need help." My blood turned to ice. After everything the Winter Pack had done to me, the multiple attempts on my life, the lies, the manipulation, Sarah still had the audacity to ask for my help? "Emma," I said coldly, "remove her, physically if necessary, then leave." "But Scarlett," Sarah began to plead. I hung up, my hand shaking slightly. The Winter Pack was reaping what they'd sown, and I refused to feel guilty about it. Roman was waiting for me in the helicopter's dining area. Several covered dishes sat on the table, the aroma making my mouth water instantly. "You ordered all this?" I asked, amazed at the spread. "You need to eat," he said simply, pulling out a chair for me. I sat down, feeling a wave of gratitude. Roman took the seat opposite me, uncovering a bowl of herbal broth first. "Start with this," he advised. "Your stomach needs to adjust after not eating properly." I nodded, accepting the spoon he offered. "Thank you." Roman carefully cut a venison steak into small pieces for me, setting it aside for when I was ready. His care made something warm bloom in my chest that had nothing to do with the hot broth. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before the helicopter door opened, bringing a rush of cold air. Aidan Walsh stepped in, followed by Eric Blackwood. "The prodigal daughter returns," Aidan announced with his usual theatrical flair. And looking rather famished, I might add. Clearly Darian Morrison wasn't feeding his promised mate properly. The cabin fell silent. Everyone froze, eyes darting to Roman, who had gone utterly still. I held my breath, thinking that Aidan was truly asking for a silver bullet with his careless words. Chapter 192, Bitter Truths. The Winter Pack house reeked of despair. I stood in the grand foyer, looking down at Sarah Winter with nothing but contempt as she clung to my leg like a desperate child. "Please, Emma," she begged, tears streaming down her pale face. "You must help me reach Scarlett. Grace coughed up blood again this morning. The silver poisoning is spreading faster than we thought." I tried to shake her off, disgusted by the display. "Let go of me." "You don't understand," Sarah sobbed, her fingers digging into my calf. "My daughter is dying!" Something snapped inside me. "Your daughter? Which one? The one you abandoned at birth when you discovered she wasn't what you wanted, or the one who tried to murder her?" Sarah's face contorted. "There's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it now? Tell me, Sarah, what exactly did Grace misunderstand when she hired those rogue wolves to attack Scarlett years ago?" Sarah's grip loosened slightly, her eyes widening. "Oh yes," I continued, my voice dripping with venom. "I know all about it. The entire Northern Territory knows by now. Your precious Grace arranged to have her sister killed, and you protected her." "That's not true," Sarah whispered, but her eyes told a different story. "I kicked her hand away from my leg. You're pathetic, all of you, wolves who can't distinguish between pack and blood." Sarah scrambled to her feet, desperation written across her face. "Emma, please." The front door burst open, interrupting her plea. A young woman with fiery red hair stormed in, pushing a stroller. Behind her, a burly security guard followed, looking extremely uncomfortable. "Still begging for help, Sarah?" The woman's voice was cold and mocking. "Maybe if you'd shown this much concern for your actual biological daughter, your pack wouldn't be falling apart." Sarah froze. "Rachel, this doesn't concern you." Rachel Thompson, Daniel's human lover. I recognized her from the hospital video. She positioned herself between me and Sarah, effectively blocking Sarah from following me. "Doesn't concern me." Rachel's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "That's rich, coming from a woman who seems more concerned about her adopted daughter than her own biological grandson." I took the opportunity to back toward the door. This family drama was exactly what I wanted to avoid. Rachel wasn't finished. She glanced at me with a quick nod before turning back to Sarah. "I've done some digging, you know. It's fascinating what people will tell you when you ask the right questions." Sarah's face paled further. "What are you talking about?" "Your obsession with Grace," Rachel said, pushing the stroller back and forth gently. "Both you and Marcus treasured her excessively, to the point where you possibly planned to have her form a relationship with Daniel, your own son. How sick is that?" Sarah gasped. "That's a vile accusation." "Is it?" Rachel challenged. "Then explain why Grace's room is next to Daniel's, with a connecting door that locks from her side only." I slipped out the front door as Sarah lunged for Rachel, their shouts following me across the front lawn. The Winter household had truly descended into chaos. Rachel Thompson had clearly forced her way in, demanding recognition for her child, Daniel's son. In my car, I took a moment to breathe. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Picking up healing herbs at Territory Border Checkpoint. Can you collect them?" I started the engine, thankful for the excuse to leave the Winter Pack behind. As I drove, my phone rang again. Alexander Amber's name flashed on the screen. "What do you want?" I answered coldly. "Emma," his voice sounded strained. "When is Scarlett returning to the Northern Territories?" I laughed. "She isn't." "What do you mean? Her healing center is no longer her concern?" I cut him off. "I'll be taking over operations here." There was a long pause. "I need to speak with her." "You're not qualified to meet Scarlett anymore," I said bluntly. "She's the treasured mate of the Shadow King and daughter of Luna Catherine of the Thorne Pack. She has a position now that you can't even imagine." "Emma, please," his voice dropped, almost pleading. "There are things I need to say to her." "Too late," I replied. feeling a twist of satisfaction. You made your choice when you chose Grace over her. Live with it. I hung up before he could respond. As I drove toward the border checkpoint, I wondered if Alexander was finally realizing what he'd lost. The mighty Alpha of the Amber Pack, son of the Northern Alpha King, reduced to begging for a conversation with the woman he'd once treated as a political pawn. Too little, too late. The plane vibrated gently beneath us as we flew toward Shadow Valley. Roman's arms circled me protectively, a warm weight I leaned into gratefully as I devoured the meal before me. "Someone's hungry," Aiden observed with a smirk, watching me eat with enthusiasm. "Did Darian Morrison not feed you properly during your captivity?" I felt Roman stiffen beside me. Without looking up, I sensed his irritation radiating through our mate bond. A sharp thud under the table was followed by Aiden's pained yelp. "Must you always be so tactless?" Eric Blackwood asked, adjusting his glasses with an elegant finger. The European Alpha looked distinctly uncomfortable with the mention of my Aiden rubbed his shin dramatically. "I'm just making conversation. Besides, Darian Morrison must be running out of resources by now. Being hunted by the Shadow Organization can't be cheap." I lowered my head, focusing intently on my food. The mention of Darian sent an unpleasant chill down my spine, despite the warmth of Roman's presence beside me. "Do you truly never learn your lesson, Walsh?" Roman's voice was dangerously soft. Aiden's eyes widened innocently. "What lesson?" "I'm merely commenting on the financial difficulties of being a rogue wolf. The Shadow Organization has frozen most of Morrison's assets, haven't they? It can't be easy maintaining that hunting lodge and all those guards on limited funds." Roman's fingers tightened slightly on my shoulder. I could sense him struggling to control his temper. I kept my head down, continuing to eat as if I hadn't heard a word. Aiden Walsh never seemed to learn when to stop talking, especially around Roman. It was like watching someone poke a sleeping predator with a stick. "Perhaps we should discuss our arrival at Shadow Valley," Eric interjected smoothly, clearly trying to change the subject. "Luna Catherine will be expecting us, yes?" Roman nodded curtly, his attention still focused on Aiden. "She's been informed." I finished my broth and reached for the water, grateful for Eric's intervention. The last thing we needed was Roman putting a silver bullet in Aiden's knee at 30,000 feet. "Scarlett," Eric addressed me directly, "I understand this will be your first return to the Eastern Territories in some time. Are you looking forward to it?" Before I could answer, Aiden jumped in again. "Of course she is. Anything's better than being locked up by a psychopathic ex-beta with delusions of mating rights." The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop several degrees. Roman's eyes flashed dangerously, a muscle twitching in his jaw. I placed my hand gently on Roman's arm. "The broth is delicious," I said quietly. "Thank you for ordering it." My simple comment seemed to pull Roman back from the edge. His gaze softened as he looked down at me. "Try the venison next," he suggested, his voice gentler than it had been moments ago. "The chef prepared it specially." I nodded, accepting the plate he pushed toward me. The meat was tender, falling apart at the touch of my fork. I took a bite and couldn't help the small sound of appreciation that escaped me. "Good?" Roman asked, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. "Perfect," I confirmed, taking another bite eagerly. Aiden watched our interaction with undisguised interest. "You're really hungry, aren't you? Did they actually starve you at that?" "Aiden," Eric cut in sharply, "perhaps you could check with the pilot about our arrival time?" Aiden blinked, then seemed to finally register the dangerous glint in Roman's eyes. "Right. Good idea." As he stood to leave, Roman's arm tightened around me protectively. I leaned closer, drawing comfort from his solid presence. After days of captivity and fear, being here with him felt like finally being able to breathe again. I lowered my head, continuing to eat and ignoring the conversation around me. Aiden Walsh never learned his lesson about provoking Roman. Chapter 193, Dangerous Departures. Ska. The private airfield hummed with activity as our jet prepared for departure. I stared longingly at the ice cream cart near the terminal building, my stomach growling despite the meal I'd had on the helicopter. "Don't even think about it," Roman said, following my gaze. His hand rested protectively on my lower back. I pouted. "Just one scoop." He shook his head, amusement dancing in his ice-blue eyes. Your stomach needs proper food after what you've been through, not sugar. Instead, he handed me a large travel mug filled with steaming fruit tea. The sweet aroma of berries and herbs wafted up, making me sigh in resignation. Fine, but I'm having ice cream the moment we reach Shadow Valley, I muttered, taking a sip of the tea. Roman's lips quirked into that half-smile I loved so much. We'll see. The oversized cup warmed my hands as I drank deeply. After days in Darian's cold hunting lodge, I couldn't seem to get warm enough. Roman noticed my slight shiver and wrapped his arm around my shoulders, pulling me closer to his heat. Our peaceful moment was shattered when Hunter burst through the cabin door, his usually composed face tight with tension. "Alpha," he said, addressing Roman, "we have a situation." Roman straightened immediately. "What's happened?" "The airfield is in chaos. Unknown wolves engaged in a firefight with security at the eastern perimeter." Hunter's report was concise, his voice low. "Our departure is delayed until they secure the area." My grip tightened on the mug. "Darian?" "It's possible," Hunter replied, his gaze flicking briefly to me before returning to Roman. Aiden, who had been scrolling through his phone in the corner, looked up with a frown. "Why would Morrison cause trouble here? He already failed to keep Scarlett in the neutral territory. Perhaps he's desperate," Eric suggested, adjusting his glasses with elegant precision. Roman's expression darkened. "Or he's not working alone." The implication hung heavy in the air. If Darian had allied with someone else, someone with resources and territory access, the situation was far more complicated than we'd thought. Through the window, I could see security personnel racing across the tarmac, weapons drawn. In the distance, the sharp pock of gunfire echoed. "What's the plan?" Hunter asked, hand resting on his holstered weapon. Roman's decision was immediate and absolute. "We take off, now." "Without tower clearance?" Aiden's eyes widened in alarm. "Are you insane? We could crash into another aircraft." "We have shadow technology on board," Hunter explained, already moving toward the cockpit. "Advanced detection systems that don't rely on tower communication." Aiden looked unconvinced. "And if another plane is taking off on the same runway?" "That won't happen," Roman stated with cold certainty. His tone left no room for argument. The engines roared to life as the pilots prepared for immediate departure. I clutched my seat as the aircraft began to move, my wolf Cora restless beneath my skin. She sensed danger, her instincts urging us to flee. Just as the plane began taxiing, a frantic pounding came from the cabin door. Hunter moved with blinding speed, gun drawn and aimed at the entrance. Roman pushed me behind him, his body a protective barrier between me and whatever threat waited outside. "Open it," Roman commanded. The flight attendant cautiously unlocked the door. It flew open to reveal Emma Chase, her face pale with terror, clothes disheveled. "Emma?" I gasped, pushing around Roman to see my friend clearly. She stood there panting, her eyes wild with fear. "Scarlett, thank the moon I caught you!" "What are you doing here?" I asked, stunned to see her. "We just spoken on the phone earlier about the winter pack drama." Emma stumbled into the cabin, and her legs nearly giving out beneath her. "The whole airfield is under attack. I nearly got shot coming here." She twisted to show us a hole in the back of her pants, the fabric singed around the edges. "Silver bullets. They're using silver bullets." Roman's expression turned glacial as he signaled for the flight attendant to secure the door. "Why are you at this airfield, Emma?" Emma's hands trembled as she clutched my arm. "My mother sent me to collect some documents from the courier office here. I was just leaving when the shooting started." Tears welled in her eyes. "I saw your plane on the tarmac and ran for it. I didn't know where else to go." I turned to Roman, a silent plea in my eyes. "Can she come with us?" His jaw tightened. "Impossible. The situation at the Thornpack compound is complicated, dangerous. We can't bring outsiders." "But I can't leave her here," I protested, gesturing toward the window where we could see figures darting between buildings, flashes of gunfire illuminating the growing dusk. "I'll take her." Eric Blackwood's cool voice cut through the tension. All eyes turned to him in surprise. "I'll ensure Miss Chase returns safely to her residence," he continued, straightening his immaculate suit. "I can travel to the Eastern Territories separately." Emma paled further at his offer, taking a small step back. I remembered her telling me how she'd once fainted after witnessing Eric kill someone in the neutral territory. The European Alpha had a deadly reputation that even humans like Emma were aware of. I don't think, Emma began, but another burst of gunfire outside made her jump. Eric raised an eyebrow. Would you prefer to take your chances out there, Miss Chase? Emma looked to me, clearly torn between her fear of Eric and the very real danger outside. He'll protect you, I assured her, squeezing her hand. Eric is lethal, but he'll get you home safely. After a moment's hesitation, Emma nodded. Okay. Roman gave Eric a significant look. Keep your eyes open. This attack feels targeted. Always, Eric replied smoothly, placing a hand on Emma's elbow to guide her toward the exit. Before leaving, Emma hugged me tightly. Be safe, she whispered. Call me when you reach the Eastern Territories. I will, I promised, returning her embrace. As they disappeared through the door, Hunter secured it behind them and gave the pilots the signal to continue takeoff procedures. Roman pulled me into his arms, his hold possessive. You seem very fond of Emma Chase, he observed, his tone deceptively casual. I looked up at him, surprised by the hint of jealousy I detected. She's my friend, one of the few people who stood by me in the Northern Territories. His blue eyes searched mine intently. You trust her? Yes, I said simply. I do. The plane picked up speed, racing down the runway as gunfire continued to echo across the airfield. I pressed closer to Roman, drawing strength from his solid presence. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Eric guiding Emma toward a black SUV, his tall frame shielding her smaller one. Despite my concern for my friend, I couldn't help feeling relieved that we were finally leaving the Northern Territories behind. Aiden watched our interaction with interest, noting Roman's arm wrapped tightly around me. His expression suggested he finally understood why he'd been struck earlier for being too familiar with me. Roman's possessiveness toward his little mate was extreme, even by Alpha standards. As the plane lifted off, I glanced back one last time at the chaos below. Whoever had orchestrated this attack had failed. We were escaping, heading home to the Eastern Territories where we both belonged. Roman's arms tightened around me as if he could read my thoughts. Nothing will separate us again, he whispered so softly that only I could hear. I believed him with every fiber of my being. Chapter 194, Dangerous Returns. My heart pounded painfully against my ribs as I trailed behind Eric Blackwood through the dimly lit corridors of the Neutral Zone building. The sporadic gunfire outside had subsided, but the eerie silence felt even more threatening. Stay close, Eric commanded, his voice low and authoritative. I didn't need to be told twice. My fingers clutched the back of his expensive suit jacket like it was a lifeline. Each shadow made me flinch, and every distant sound had me imagining silver bullets tearing through flesh. Are we safe now? I whispered, my voice embarrassingly shaky. Eric didn't answer. He simply raised one hand in a gesture that clearly meant, be quiet. His tall frame moved with predatory grace, not making a single sound despite his polished leather shoes on the tiled floor. We turned a corner, and suddenly 2 masked figures lunged from the shadows. Silver blades glinted in the dim light as they charged straight at us. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Everything happened so fast my brain could barely process it. Eric moved like lightning. He shoved me behind him with one powerful arm, while the other grabbed the first attacker's wrist, twisting until I heard a sickening The silver blade clattered to the floor as Eric delivered a swift kick that sent the masked wolf flying into the wall. The second attacker slashed wildly, the blade missing Eric's face by inches. With terrifying precision, the European Alpha caught the rogue's arm and twisted it backward at an impossible angle. The wolf howled in pain until Eric silenced him with a brutal strike to the throat. Both attackers lay motionless on the ground in less than 10 seconds. Something inside me snapped. Pure, primal fear took over, and before I knew what I was doing, I launched myself at Eric. My arms wrapped around his neck and my legs clamped around his waist like a terrified koala. Get me out of here! I sobbed against his shoulder. Please, please get me out. Eric stiffened, clearly taken aback by my sudden clinginess. Miss Chase, this is hardly appropriate. I don't care, I interrupted, tightening my grip. I want to go back to Scarlett. I need to be with Scarlett. That's impossible, Eric stated firmly, trying to pry my arms from around his neck. She's on her way to the Eastern Territories with Roman. Then take me there too, I begged, tears streaming down my face. I'm not safe here. They're using silver bullets. They'll kill me. Eric sighed heavily. You're human. Silver bullets are no more deadly to you than regular ones. That's not the point, I wailed, burying my face against his neck. I don't want to die at all, with any kind of bullet. For a second, I thought Eric would forcibly remove me, but instead, he made an irritated sound deep in his throat and adjusted his grip to support my weight. This is completely unnecessary, he muttered, but began walking with me, still clinging to him like a terrified child. Thank you, I whispered, unable to stop shaking. Thank you. Thank you. When we reached another corridor junction, 2 more masked figures appeared. Without breaking stride, Eric shifted me to one arm, drew his gun with the other, and fired 2 precise shots. The attackers dropped before they could even raise their weapons. Are you bulletproof? I whispered in awe. Eric's only response was a dismissive snort as he tucked me more securely under his arm and continued walking. His expression hovered somewhere between annoyance and an unexpected hint of protectiveness that made me feel marginally safer. Scarlett's POV. The helicopter hummed steadily as we soared through the night sky, leaving the chaos of the airfield far behind. Roman sat beside me, his arm possessively around my shoulders as I gazed out the window. Scarlett, his voice drew my attention back to him. You're staring? I blinked in confusion. At what? The flight attendant, he said, his eyes narrowing slightly. You've been looking at her for more than 5 seconds. I couldn't help but laugh. Are you serious? I wasn't even aware I was looking at her. 5 seconds, he repeated solemnly. That's your limit for looking at anyone, even Emma. I raised an eyebrow. You're jealous of Emma? My human friend? I'm not jealous, Roman countered, pulling me closer. I'm simply establishing boundaries. You're mine now. The possessiveness in his voice sent a delicious shiver down my spine, though I tried not to show it. My wolf Cora purred contentedly beneath my skin, perfectly happy with Roman's claim. You're being ridiculous, I said, though without any real heat behind the words. Roman's ice-blue eyes held mine. Am I? Before I could answer, Hunter approached from the front of the helicopter. Alpha, we've received word that Eric and Miss Chase have encountered resistance at the border checkpoint. My stomach dropped. Are they okay? Hunter nodded. Eric has neutralized the threat, but there may be more rogues in the area. I turned to Roman, worry flooding me. Shouldn't we wait for them, make sure they get out safely? Roman's expression remained impassive. Eric can handle himself. But Emma is with the European Alpha, Roman finished for me. She couldn't be safer. I wasn't convinced. Roman, she's my friend. If something happens to her, nothing will happen, he stated with absolute certainty. We need to make progress toward the Eastern Territories. It's been a long day, and you need rest before we arrive. His tone left no room for argument. I sighed, knowing when Roman used his alpha voice, the discussion was over. He stood and held out his hand. Come, you should sleep. I took his hand, allowing him to lead me toward the private sleeping compartment at the back of the helicopter. As soon as the door closed behind us, Roman pulled me into his arms. I don't want to sleep, I said quickly, suspecting what rest might actually entail. I'm not tired. A knowing smile played at the corner of his mouth. No? My cheeks heated under his intense gaze. Roman, we've been intimate for hours already on the plane. I need actual sleep. He chuckled and pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead. Then sleep you shall have, little wolf. To my surprise, he simply pulled me down onto the bed beside him, tucking me against his chest. His scent enveloped me, pine, winter, and something uniquely Roman that always made me feel safe. Rest, he murmured against my hair. Despite my protests about not being tired, the events of the past few days caught up with me. Darian's the escape, the shootout at the airfield, it all swirled in my mind, making my eyelids heavy. Roman's steady heartbeat beneath my ear became a lullaby, and before I knew it, I was drifting into peaceful darkness, our mate bond humming with contentment. 8 hours passed in a blur of sleep, gentle touches, and whispered conversations. When I finally emerged from the sleeping compartment, disoriented and bleary-eyed, Hunter informed us we had arrived at the Eastern Territories. Finally, I murmured, stretching like a cat. My body ached pleasantly from Roman's attentions during our flight. Roman appeared behind me, fresh and immaculate as always. "You'll need to change before we land," he said, gesturing to a garment bag hanging by the door. I unzipped it, expecting my usual practical attire. Instead, I found traditional Thorne pack clothes, a crisp white shirt with the pack's emblem embroidered on the collar, and a soft pink overcoat with delicate silver clasps. "What is this?" I asked, holding up the feminine ensemble. "Your arrival outfit," Roman replied as if it were obvious. I frowned. "I'm not a child, Roman. I've outgrown these traditional pack clothes." "Hunter prepared them based on your European territory style," Roman explained, helping me into the white shirt despite my protests. "Luna Catherine expects a certain appearance from her daughter." As he fastened the silver clasps of the overcoat, I caught my reflection in the window. Despite my objections, I had to admit the outfit suited me, emphasizing my delicate features while still appearing dignified. Looking at Roman's satisfied expression as he adjusted my collar, I suddenly realized something. In his heart, I had never truly grown up from the little wolf he had protected all these years. Hunter's POV. Standing outside the sleeping compartment, I watched Aiden Walsh pacing restlessly. The European healer had been uncharacteristically quiet since we'd left the airfield, perhaps finally understanding the gravity of our situation. "Roman certainly didn't waste any time," Aiden commented, gesturing toward the closed door of the sleeping compartment. 8 hours alone with his mate, and they've barely come up for air. I remained stone-faced, refusing to engage with his inappropriate observations about our Alpha. "He waited long enough," Aiden continued, undeterred by my silence. "Years of watching her grow up, holding back, and now he's making up for lost time." "Luna Catherine is already preparing for their mating ceremony," I said, hoping to redirect the conversation to something more appropriate. Aiden's eyebrows shot up. "Really? She accepted their relationship that easily?" I expected more resistance, considering she raised them as siblings. I shrugged. "Luna Catherine has always had a special insight. She probably saw this coming long before anyone else." "Still," Aiden mused, "her biological child and the one she raised coming together in a bond that transcends their adopted sibling status. It's quite the story." "He looks more like he's bringing his daughter back rather than his mate," Aiden whispered, too low for anyone but me to hear. I winced at his tactless remark. Both Eric's and my warnings about watching his mouth around the Shadow King had clearly been wasted on him. Chapter 195, Secret Support. The Eastern Territories welcomed us with familiar, crisp air and the scent of pine forests. As our private helicopter descended onto the landing pad, I felt a strange mixture of homecoming and apprehension. This was where I'd grown up, but also where everything had changed. Hunter and Aiden stood waiting as we exited the helicopter. The wind whipped my hair around my face as Roman's hand rested protectively on my lower back. "Welcome home, Alpha," Hunter said with a respectful nod. His eyes briefly met mine, acknowledging me with a slight smile. "Luna Scarlett?" The title still felt foreign to my ears. From adopted sister to mate, the transition seemed impossibly fast to everyone except Roman and me. "The cars are ready," Hunter continued, gesturing toward 2 black SUVs parked nearby. "We've prepared for immediate departure to the Shadow compound." Roman's expression remained impassive. "Change of plans. We're going directly to handle Shadow organization business." I frowned. "What about going to the pack house first?" I thought. "Not yet," Roman interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "There's an urgent matter requiring my attention." I tried to hide my disappointment. After years away, I'd been looking forward to seeing the pack house again, revisiting the places that had shaped my childhood. Hunter approached Roman, speaking in a low voice. "Alpha, there's news. Darian Morrison has been spotted in the Eastern Territories." My blood ran cold at the mention of my kidnapper. Roman's arm tightened around me immediately, his body tensing. "When?" Roman demanded. "This morning. Our scouts tracked him to the eastern border region." Hunter's eyes flickered to me briefly. "He appears to be moving toward the neutral trading zones." Roman's jaw clenched. "He's more brazen than I expected." "Or more desperate," Aiden offered, adjusting his designer sunglasses against the morning light. "Running out of allies, perhaps?" Roman turned to me, his ice-blue eyes serious. "I need to address this immediately, but I'm concerned about leaving you alone." "I'm not afraid," I said firmly, lifting my chin. A strange expression crossed his face, something between pride and concern. You weren't always so brave, little wolf." His words took me back to that terrible night years ago in the European territories. I'd been barely 16 when I witnessed Roman killing a rogue wolf who'd breached our security. The brutality of it had terrified me, the way his face remained calm while his hands delivered death. I'd avoided him for days afterward, frightened of the darkness I'd glimpsed beneath my adopted brother's gentle exterior. "Do you remember?" he asked softly, his thumb brushing my cheek. I nodded. "I was young, foolish." "You were innocent," he corrected, "and I showed you something you weren't ready to see." My hand found his, squeezing gently. "I'm not afraid anymore, Roman. I understand what you are now." His eyes darkened with emotion. Wordlessly, he pulled me into his embrace, pressing a gentle kiss to my cheek. Through our mate bond, I felt his relief. Relief that I could accept the shadow that lived within him. "We should move," Hunter reminded us, discreetly checking his watch. Roman released me reluctantly. "You'll stay with Aiden at the secure location while Hunter and I handle this." I frowned. "I could help. I know more about Darien than you might think." "Oh?" Roman raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to continue. "He's black-hearted, Roman," I said with conviction. "During my captivity, I overheard him talking about connections in the Northern Territories. He mentioned something about international support, too. I think he has allies we don't know about." A smile played at the corner of Roman's mouth, his eyes warming with amusement. "Listen to you, talking strategy. My little wolf has grown sharp teeth." I rolled my eyes at his patronizing tone. "I've been running a successful healing center for years, Roman. 7 million annual income doesn't come from being naive." The car went utterly silent. I looked around in confusion as Aiden's face contorted strangely. Suddenly, he burst into uncontrollable laughter, doubling over in his seat. "What's so funny?" I demanded, crossing my arms defensively. Aiden wiped tears from his eyes, gasping for breath. 7 million! Oh, Moon, that's priceless! Roman shot him a warning glare that would have silenced anyone else. But Aiden was already too far gone. "Tell her, Roman!" He wheezed between fits of laughter. "Tell her where that 7 million really came from." I turned to Roman, my chest tightening with sudden apprehension. "What is he talking about?" Roman's expression became carefully neutral. "Aiden, that's enough." But Aiden was enjoying this too much to stop. The great independent she-wolf, building her empire from scratch. He clutched his sides. Meanwhile, Roman was secretly funneling money to you through shell companies the entire time. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "What?" Hunter sighed heavily, shooting Aiden a disapproving look. "This isn't how Alpha planned to tell her." "Is it true?" I asked Roman, my voice barely above a whisper. Roman's silence was answer enough. My cheeks burned with humiliation as I realized the implications. My precious independence, my hard-won success, had it all been an illusion? "You knew where I was?" I whispered. "All this time?" Roman met my gaze unflinchingly. "Since your confrontation with Grace Winter." The revelation knocked the breath from my lungs. All those years I thought I'd escaped, built something of my own, been truly on my own. He'd been watching from the shadows. "But my investments, my research," I began, desperately searching for something that had truly been mine. "All your research was genuine," Roman assured me quickly. "Your healing methods, your innovations, those were all you, Scarlett." "But the money?" I pressed. Hunter cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Alpha believed you might struggle without support. He arranged for funding to reach you through various channels." 7 million? I repeated, still stunned. Aiden snorted again. 7 million is nothing. Roman wanted to give you billions in healing research funding. The Shadow Organization has more money than small countries. Hunter had to physically restrain him from dumping Switzerland's entire GDP into your bank account. Roman shot Aiden another warning glare, but the damage was done. I sat back in my seat, my mind reeling from this revelation. "You limited it to 7 million, Hunter explained carefully, "to avoid raising your suspicions." I turned to face Roman, torn between gratitude for his protection and anger at his deception. All this time, I thought I'd proven my independence, shown I could thrive without the Thorne Pack or the Shadow Organization. I'd been so proud of building something on my own, but it had never been real. My success, my financial independence, it had all come from Roman. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice small. Roman's expression softened. Would you have accepted my help if you knew it came from me? I couldn't answer. We both knew the truth. My pride would never have allowed it. The healing center is still yours, he said gently. The innovation, the patients you've helped, the lives you've saved, that's all you, Scarlett. The money was just a tool. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't find the energy. This revelation completely shattered my belief that I had been independently successful during my time away from the Eastern Territories. Chapter 196, Shattered Illusions. I sat in stunned silence, struggling to process what I'd just learned. The healing center I'd been so proud of, my supposed independence, had all been carefully orchestrated by Roman. The realization left me feeling hollow. Northern Medical Supplies, I said finally, my voice barely audible. That was you too, wasn't it? Roman's ice-blue eyes met mine without flinching. Yes, it's one of the Shadow Organization's subsidiaries. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. Northern Medical Supplies had been my largest supplier, providing rare herbs and healing materials at prices I'd considered fortunate. Now I understood why. So everything was fake, I whispered, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. All my supposed achievements, just an illusion you created. No, Roman said firmly, taking my hands in his. Your healing techniques, your dedication to your patients, the respect you earned, those are real, Scarlett. The money was just a tool. Aiden cleared his throat awkwardly. If it helps, he never directly interfered with your operations. He just made sure you had the resources you needed. I shot him a glare that made him shrink back in his seat. 7 million, I repeated, still processing the number. I really thought I was earning that through my own practice. The pride I'd felt in that achievement crumbled away, leaving nothing but ashes. You were, Roman insisted. The healing center was profitable because of your skills. I simply ensured you had the necessary foundation. I pulled my hands away from his, wrapping my arms around myself. You could have told me. Would you have accepted my help? He asked, his voice softening. We both knew the answer. My stubborn pride would have rejected any assistance from him. Hunter, ever the diplomat, interjected gently. If I may, Luna Scarlett, your initiative to establish yourself independently in the Northern Territories was remarkable. Few wolves could have achieved what you did, regardless of financial support. I appreciated his attempt to soothe my wounded pride, but the truth still stung. Your healing techniques were entirely your own, Roman added. You developed them without my direct involvement. That's something to be proud of. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to my indignation, but exhaustion won out. After everything, our escape, the confrontation at the airfield, I simply didn't have the energy for outrage. I need some air, I murmured, moving toward the window. The Eastern Territories stretched out before us, familiar forests and mountains I hadn't seen in 3 years. Despite everything, a part of me recognized this as home. Behind me, I heard Roman dismiss Hunter and Aiden with a quiet command. The car fell silent as they exited, leaving us alone. Little wolf, Roman said softly, look at me. I turned reluctantly, unable to resist the gentle command in his voice. He stood before me, his powerful frame silhouetted against the tinted windows. I'm proud of you, of what you built in the Northern Territories. Even though it wasn't really mine, I couldn't keep the bitterness from my tone. It was yours, he insisted. The Shadow Organization may have provided resources, but you were the one who built something meaningful with them. I sighed, leaning against him despite my frustration. His arms encircled me automatically, and I nestled my head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. I just wanted to prove I could survive without you, I admitted, my voice muffled against his shirt. His arms tightened around me. And you did. You thrived, Scarlett. You created a healing center respected throughout the Northern Territories. Your methods saved countless lives. I looked up at him, still pouting slightly. But you were there all along, pulling strings from the shadows. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Watching over you is instinct for me. I couldn't stop if I tried. We stayed like that for a while, my anger gradually fading into resignation. As much as I wanted to maintain my indignation, there was something comforting about knowing he'd been looking out for me all along. Why didn't you come for me sooner? I asked suddenly, voicing a question that had haunted me for 3 years, after I left the Eastern Territories. Roman's expression darkened. I wanted to. The moment I discovered what Lily Morrison had done to force you away, I was ready to tear apart the territories to find you. But you didn't, I prompted gently. He sighed, one hand moving to stroke my hair. The shadow organization required my full attention first. Lily's betrayal had created vulnerabilities I needed to address before I could leave. By the time I'd stabilized our position, you were already establishing yourself in the Northern Territories. So you decided to watch from afar instead? I asked, trying to understand. At first I was frantic, he admitted, surprising me with his candor. Until I discovered you were operating safely in the Northern Territories, I barely slept. Once I knew where you were, I could finally breathe again. The vulnerability in his confession touched something deep inside me. Roman rarely admitted weakness, even to me. Then I began establishing channels to support you discreetly, he continued. Hunter advised patience, allowing you space to grow independently before I approached you directly. Hunter said that? I asked, surprised. Roman nodded. He recognized your need for autonomy. It was his suggestion to limit the financial support to something believable. I made a mental note to thank Hunter later for his insight. Without his intervention, Roman might have been far less subtle in his support. The car door opened, and Hunter himself returned with Aiden trailing behind him. Both carried food containers for the journey ahead. We've brought provisions for the trip, Hunter announced, setting the bags down carefully. Aiden eyed us with thinly veiled interest. Everything all right in paradise? Roman's warning glare silenced any further comments. I moved to the food bags, suddenly aware of my hunger. Among the provisions, I spotted herbs that could make my special tea. Without asking, I began preparing the beverage, crushing dried moon rose petals between my fingers and adding them to hot water. When it was ready, I offered the first cup to Roman. He accepted it without hesitation, though I knew the taste would be too strong for his alpha palate. Sure enough, he winced slightly at the first sip, but continued drinking anyway. Too bitter? I asked, secretly pleased he was making the effort. It's fine, he lied smoothly, taking another brave sip. Aiden sniffed the air curiously. Moonrose tea? That's a rare indulgence, I shrugged. It's my favorite. Roman finished his cup with admirable fortitude before turning to Hunter. Call James Amber. Tell him I need his parenting advice. I frowned at the cryptic request. Parenting advice about what? Roman's expression revealed nothing, just tying up loose ends regarding Alexander's behavior. The mention of Alexander sent a chill through me. The last time we'd spoken, he'd called pleading for help for Grace and Daniel. Now, it seemed Roman was planning some form of retribution for that intrusion. Roman, I began, uncertain how to frame my concern. He silenced me with a gentle finger to my lips. Don't worry about it, little wolf. Some matters require diplomatic handling. Before I could press further, Hunter announced our arrival at a secluded marina. Through the window, I could see a sleek speedboat waiting to take us to Shadow Valley. As I prepared to exit the car, I unconsciously tugged at my collar, ensuring my freshly healed mating marks remained hidden. The movement didn't escape Aiden's notice. Still shy about those marks, princess? He teased, earning a warning snarl from Roman that echoed through the confined space of the car. Mind your own business, Walsh, Roman growled, his eyes flashing dangerously. Aiden raised his hands in surrender, though his amused expression remained. Before boarding the boat, I remembered I needed to check on Emma after the chaotic scene at the airfield. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number, stepping away from the group for privacy. Emma answered on the second ring, her voice thick with what sounded like tears. Emma? Are you all right? I asked, immediately concerned. A muffled sob came through the phone. No. I mean, yes, I'm safe, but no, I'm not all right. What happened? Did those rogues hurt you? Worse, she wailed dramatically. I lost my first kiss while fleeing those attackers. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. You! What? My first kiss! Emma repeated, sniffling. Do you know how long I've been saving that? 24 years, and now it's gone. I held the phone away from my ear, completely baffled. Emma, I don't understand. How does one lose a kiss while fleeing? Chapter 197, Unexpected Kiss and Playful Teasing, Scarlett's POV. Eric Blackwood, it was him. He did it. Emma sobbed loudly. Eric Blackwood did what? I nearly dropped my phone, my voice rising an octave higher than normal. Emma's sobs continued through the speaker. I could picture her tear-streaked face, her usually composed demeanor completely shattered. "He kissed me," she wailed, "right in the middle of the chase. Those rogues were coming after us with silver bullets, and he just pushed me against the wall and... I glanced at Roman, who was standing close enough to hear every word. His expression remained carefully neutral, but I detected a hint of amusement in his ice-blue eyes. "Why would he do that?" I asked, trying to make sense of this bizarre development. Emma sniffled loudly. "He said it was to convince the rogues we were just a random couple, not people fleeing from them. But Scarlett, it was my first kiss. I was saving it for someone special." The genuine distress in her voice made my heart ache for my friend. Emma had always been romantically cautious, even a bit old-fashioned about these things. "I'm so sorry, Emma," I said softly. "That's unexpected." "Unexpected? It's outrageous." Emma's voice rose dangerously. "I want you to slap him for me when you see him next, right across that smug, perfect face of his." I bit my lip to suppress a smile. "You want me to slap the European Alpha, the man who kills people for looking at him wrong?" "Well," Emma hesitated, "maybe just give him a very stern look?" "I'd do it myself, but I'm still too terrified of him." Roman's hand found mine, his thumb tracing small circles on my palm. The casual intimacy made me shiver despite the serious conversation. "Are all men around you this shameless?" Emma suddenly demanded. "Is Roman just as bad?" I froze, mortification washing over me as Roman's grip tightened slightly on my hand. He was hearing every word, and the smirk now playing at the corner of his mouth told me he was enjoying my discomfort. No," I stammered, feeling my cheeks heat. He's a good person." Even as I said it, memories flooded my mind. Roman's possessive touches, his demanding kisses, the way he'd claimed me as his mate after years of being my adopted brother. Good? Perhaps? Shameless? Absolutely. Emma sounded unconvinced. "Well, at least you're happy with him. I can hear it in your voice." I caught Roman's gaze, finding his eyes had darkened with an emotion that made my pulse quicken. "I am happy," I admitted softly. "Ugh, you're no help," Emma groaned. "I'm traumatized, and you're over there living your fairy tale romance." "I'll talk to you soon," I promised. "And Emma, try not to overthink the kiss. It was just a survival tactic." After hanging up, I turned to Roman with wide eyes. "Eric Blackwood kissed Emma? I can't believe it." Roman shrugged, seeming completely unsurprised. "The European Alpha has always been efficient." "Efficient?" I repeated incredulously. "That's what you're calling it?" His lips curved into a smile that made my heart skip. "Would you prefer I call it something else?" Before I could respond, Hunter approached. "The boat is ready, Alpha." We boarded the luxury cruise ship that would take us deeper into Eastern Territory waters. The vessel was stunning, all polished wood and gleaming metal, with plush furnishings that spoke of old money and power. This was Shadow Organization transportation, far beyond what regular pack members would ever experience. As we walked through the corridors to our designated suite, we passed a cabin where unmistakable sounds of intimate activity could be heard. Moans and passionate whispers leaked through the door, making my cheeks burn instantly. Roman leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. "Want to peek inside, little wolf?" "Roman," I hissed, mortified. "Of course not." His low chuckle sent a shiver down my spine. "Whatever they're doing," he whispered, his voice dropping to a seductive murmur, "it isn't as good as what we do." My entire face felt like it was on fire. We'd been intimate numerous times since becoming mates, but his boldness still caught me off guard. This was the man who had been my adopted brother for years. The shift in our relationship still felt new and sometimes shocking. Aiden, who had been walking a few paces behind us, cleared his throat. "If you two are going to continue this conversation, perhaps I should." Roman's head turned sharply, his ice-blue eyes flashing with warning. The look was enough to silence Aiden immediately, his mouth snapping shut mid-sentence. "Perhaps you should walk ahead with Hunter," Roman finished for him, his tone leaving no room for argument. Aiden nodded quickly and hurried to catch up with Hunter, leaving Roman and me with a semblance of privacy in the narrow corridor. "You don't need to terrify everyone who speaks to us," I said quietly. Roman's expression softened as he looked at me. "I don't terrify everyone, just those who interrupt moments between me and my mate. The way he said "my mate" made my wolf Cora purr beneath my skin, pleased by his claim despite my rational mind still adjusting to our new relationship. We continued through the ship, eventually emerging onto the upper deck. The fresh lake breeze was invigorating after the stuffy corridor carrying the scent of pine and clean water. A commotion near the starboard side caught my attention. A group had gathered to watch a wealthy-looking alpha in a black fur coat practicing his shooting. But it wasn't ordinary target practice. He was firing gold bullets into the water. "What on earth?" I murmured, stepping closer to observe the bizarre spectacle. Several beautiful she-wolves in bikinis were diving into the cold lake each time a bullet hit the water, emerging triumphantly with gold casings clutched in their hands. The alpha rewarded each successful retrieval with approval and what appeared to be healthy monetary tips. "That's Carson," Hunter explained, noticing my confusion. "Alpha of the Ridgepack, known for his extravagant displays." I watched in amazement as another bullet arced through the air, followed by the splash of a she-wolf diving gracefully into the frigid water. "Isn't the water freezing?" I asked, hugging my own coat tighter around me, just thinking about it. "It is," Roman confirmed, watching the display with mild interest. "They train for this. Their stamina is impressive." The she-wolf seemed completely unfazed by the cold, their movements powerful and precise as they retrieved bullet after bullet. Their physical conditioning was clearly exceptional. "You could develop that kind of stamina too," Roman suggested, his eyes sliding to me with unmistakable intent. "If you ran for 2 hours daily when we returned to the Thornpack house." The implication behind his words was clear, especially with the way his gaze lingered on me. I looked away quickly, my cheeks warming despite the cool air. "I'm not diving into freezing water for gold casings," I muttered. "That's not the kind of stamina I was referring to," Roman replied, his voice low enough that only I could hear. My heart raced at his suggestive tone. This playful, provocative side of Roman was still new to me. For years he had been my stoic, protective older brother. Now he was my mate, increasingly open about his desires. Chapter 198. Dangerous Negotiations. The salty breeze whipped across my face as we stood on the deck watching the extravagant display of wealth. The alpha in the black fur coat had just fired another gold bullet into the water when he suddenly paused, his attention drawn to Roman. Recognition flickered across his features. He holstered his custom pistol and walked toward us with the casual confidence of a man accustomed to power. "Roman Thorne," he called, his voice carrying across the deck. "The Shadow King himself graces my humble vessel." Roman's expression remained impassive. "Victor Blackwell, I hear Vincent Gray left something with you." So this was Victor Blackwell. I studied him carefully. Middle-aged, heavy-set, with an expensive watch glinting on his wrist and several gold rings adorning his fingers. Everything about him screamed new money and questionable taste. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Straight to business, as always, but these matters require finesse. "The item, Victor," Roman said, his tone leaving no room for games. Victor gestured toward a private seating area. "Let's discuss this somewhere more comfortable." Roman placed his hand on my lower back as we followed Victor to a lavish arrangement of couches. I immediately regretted accompanying him when I saw what awaited us. Victor settled onto the largest couch and pulled a young female Omega onto his lap. She couldn't have been more than 20, with wide eyes that darted nervously around the group. "Beautiful day for negotiations, isn't it?" Victor remarked, his hand unctuously sliding from the woman's breast downward in a casual display of ownership. My wolf, Cora, bristled beneath my skin, disgusted by his disrespectful display. The poor Omega kept her eyes downcast, her discomfort obvious to everyone, except her oblivious master. Victor snapped his fingers, and the woman immediately produced an expensive cigar, lighting it for him with practiced precision. He blew smoke rings toward the ceiling before his gaze finally landed on me. "And who's this lovely creature?" he asked, his eyes lingering too long on the collar of my coat, where my claiming marks were partially visible. Roman's hand tightened on my waist. "My mate." Victor laughed as if Roman had told an excellent joke. "Your mate? Come now, Thorne, we all know you don't take permanent companions. His eyes raked over me again, this time with predatory interest. Though I can see why you'd keep this one around for entertainment. My cheeks burned with indignation. I straightened my spine, meeting his gaze directly. I am Luna Scarlett Thorne of the Eastern Territories. Victor's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. The little adopted sister? How interesting. The way he emphasized interesting made my skin crawl. Beside me, I felt Roman tense, his ice-blue eyes darkening dangerously. The item, Victor, Roman repeated, his voice deceptively calm. I'm not here for your commentary. Victor leaned back, taking a long drag from his cigar. Everything has a price, Thorne, even items left in my care by mutual acquaintances. Name it, Roman said flatly. Victor's gaze slid back to me, a slow smile spreading across his face. Let me borrow your mate for a day. Just one day of her company. Then the item is yours. The shock of his audacity momentarily rendered me speechless. Did he just suggest? Roman moved before I could even process what was happening. In one fluid motion, he retrieved his silver bullet gun and placed it on the table between us. The heavy thud of metal on wood silenced everyone in the vicinity. That's not a negotiation I'm willing to entertain, Roman said, his voice deadly quiet. Victor's bodyguards immediately reached for their weapons, their wolves rising beneath their skin. I could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Victor raised his hand in a casual gesture, stopping his men from drawing. No need for unpleasantness. I was merely suggesting polite company, perhaps a healing session with the famous Scarlett Winters. Your mind went to darker places, not mine. His smirk made it clear exactly what he'd been suggesting. I'm not here to negotiate, Roman stated coldly. I'm here to collect what belongs to me. And if I refuse, Victor challenged. Roman didn't blink. Then I'll take it anyway. The two men stared at each other for a long, tense moment. Finally, Victor sighed dramatically and nudged the Omega off his lap. You're no fun, Thorne. He stood straightening his expensive suit. But I know when I'm outmatched. He snapped his fingers at one of his men who produced a small wooden box and handed it to him. Victor held it up, just out of Roman's reach. Remember this moment, Shadow King. There will come a time when you need allies more than you need to display your power. He tossed the box onto the table with disdain. Other alphas will want this too, he warned, backing away with his entourage. Don't let a she-wolf interfere in the important affairs of the shadows, no matter how beautiful and seductive she is. The comment stung more than I wanted to admit. Perhaps I shouldn't have accompanied Roman after all? Had my presence complicated his negotiations? We watched in silence as Victor and his group retreated across the deck. Once they were a safe distance away, Roman turned to Hunter and nodded once. Throw them all overboard, he commanded simply. My eyes widened in shock. Roman, you can't just... It's within my rights, he replied calmly, retrieving the wooden box from the table. This is our vessel. I frowned in confusion. Our vessel? This cruise ship belongs to the Shadow Organization? No, Roman said, his eyes meeting mine. It belongs to you. I purchased it in your name 3 years ago. I stared at him, completely dumbfounded. You bought me a cruise ship? From behind us, Aiden snickered. How many assets have you placed in Scarlett's name, Roman? 10? 20? Roman shrugged, his attention focused on examining the box's contents. I lost count. It became a habit to put properties in her name, even during the years she was away. My heart skipped a beat at this casual admission. While I'd been struggling to assert my independence in the Northern Territories, Roman had been quietly building a fortune in my name. You didn't think that might be risky? Aiden pressed, clearly enjoying my shocked expression. What if she'd rolled up those assets to be with another male wolf? Roman's head snapped up, his glacial stare silencing Aiden immediately. The European healer raised his hands in surrender, backing away several steps. In the distance, shouts and splashes confirmed that Hunter was carrying out Roman's orders. Victor and his entourage were getting an unexpected swimming lesson in the frigid waters. I should have been appalled by Roman's high-handed treatment of Victor. Instead, I found myself touched by the revelation that he had continued acquiring assets in my name even when we were apart. It was possessive, controlling, and utterly Roman, but it also meant he had never given up on me, never stopped believing I would return to him. As Hunter returned to report the task completed, I watched Roman's profile against the setting sun. The Shadow King, feared throughout the territories, had secretly been building a future for us, even when I'd thought I was building one without him. Chapter 199, Dangerous Waters. I watched in disbelief as Aiden continued to push his luck with Roman. After that comment about me potentially running off with another wolf, I expected Rome to at least threaten him with silver bullets. Instead, my mate simply glared, which was somehow more terrifying. You know Alpha, Aiden continued, apparently determined to dig his own grave. You should be more careful with your little mate during your intimate moments. She's obviously in pain from your enthusiasm. My cheeks burned instantly. Aiden! I hissed. Roman's ice-blue eyes darkened dangerously. The temperature around us seemed to drop several degrees. I mean, look at how she's been walking today. Aiden pressed on, either oblivious or suicidal. Clearly you were a bit too rough with... Enough. Roman's voice was deadly quiet. I could feel his rage building through our mate bond, like a gathering storm. Why was Aiden doing this? Did he have a death wish? I'm just saying, as a healer, I notice these things. Aiden shrugged, seemingly immune to the danger signals radiating from Roman. If she's always hurt after you're together, she might decide to leave. I threw my hands up in defeat. There was no saving him from his own stupidity. Some people simply lacked emotional intelligence, and Aiden Walsh was clearly their king. Roman turned to one of his shadow enforcers. Take Luna Scarlett to our cabin. Panic flashed across Aiden's face as he realized he'd be left alone with my furious mate. Wait. Aiden grabbed my arm desperately. Scarlett, don't go! Don't leave me with him! I glanced at Roman, whose jaw was clenched so tightly I feared for his teeth. Roman, throwing Victor off the ship? Will that cause problems with your shadow organization plans? Don't worry about Victor, Roman replied, his voice deceptively calm. He's irrelevant. I nodded, turning to leave. Aiden's grip on my wrist tightened. Please don't go, he whispered, eyes wide with genuine fear. Roman's alpha power surged through the room like a physical force, making everyone except me flinch. His ice-blue eyes glinted with unmistakable warning. Let her go, he growled. Aiden released my wrist as if burned. I gave him a sympathetic look before following the enforcer out of the lounge. I watched in desperation as Scarlett disappeared from view, taking with her my last hope of survival. The Shadow King's power crackled dangerously in the air, raising the hackles of my wolf beneath my skin. Alpha Roman, I was just joking, I attempted, forcing a shaky laugh. You know how I am, always running my mouth. Roman began unbuttoning his shirt. My panic escalated. Was he preparing to shift and tear me apart? But as he removed his shirt, I noticed deep scratches across his muscular back. Evidence of his passionate encounters with Scarlett, no doubt. The sight of Roman's powerful physique drew attention from others on the yacht. A beautiful she-wolf approached us, her eyes fixed on Roman's bare chest. Hello there, she purred, completely ignoring me. I don't believe we've met. I'm Cassandra from the Riverstone Pack. She extended a manicured hand toward Roman, her body language screaming availability. Roman didn't even look at her. Get lost. His dismissal was so cold and abrupt that the she-wolf physically recoiled. Her face flushed with humiliation as she quickly retreated. That was harsh, I commented, momentarily forgetting my perilous situation. She was quite attractive. Roman's ice-blue eyes locked onto mine. When you have your true mate, everyone else becomes invisible. Then why are you still angry about my comment? I pressed, unable to stop myself. If you're so secure in your relationship with Scarlett, you truly don't understand, do you? Roman interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. I shrugged. I understand the mate bond is strong, but... No, you don't understand, Roman cut me off again. But you will. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the deck. What are you doing? I asked, panic rising in my throat. Helping you sober up, Roman replied calmly. I'm not drunk, I protested as he continued pulling me inexorably toward the railing. Not with alcohol, Roman agreed. With stupidity, my blood ran cold as I realized his intention. No, wait, Roman. Too late. With one powerful motion, he launched me over the railing. I plummeted toward the icy water, a scream tearing from my throat. The shock of the cold water stole my breath. I surfaced, sputtering and gasping, to find Roman diving in smoothly beside me. 2 kilometers, he said calmly, treading water. That's how far we're swimming. What? I spluttered, the frigid water already numbing my limbs. I hate swimming. I know, Roman replied, beginning to stroke powerfully away from the yacht. That's the point. I had no choice but to follow him, cursing with every movement. The cold water bit into my skin despite my wolf's natural resistance to temperature. My limbs grew heavier with each passing minute. After what felt like an eternity of torturous swimming, Roman stopped. We were so far from the yacht it looked like a toy in the distance. Good work, he said, not even slightly winded. Now swim back. What? I gasped, barely able to keep my head above water. With me. Roman's smile was terrifying in its calmness. No, alone. You can't leave me here, I protested, genuine fear gripping me now. I can, and I am, he replied. And Aiden, if you ever make another comment about my mate, about her pain, her pleasure, or any aspect of our intimate life, I will swim you to the middle of the ocean and truly leave you there. With those chilling words, he turned and began swimming back toward the yacht, his powerful strokes quickly putting distance between us. I hate you, I shouted after him, my voice barely carrying over the water. And Scarlett, too, for not protecting me. The wolf beneath my skin whimpered as I turned reluctantly toward the distant yacht. Each stroke was agony against the current. The water felt like liquid ice seeping into my bones. Stupid, Alpha, and his mate. I gasped between strokes. The cruise ship seemed to get further away rather than closer. My muscles screamed in protest as I forced myself to continue. This was torture, plain and simple. And for what? A few careless comments? The Shadow King's infamous temper was clearly not exaggerated. I could feel my strength ebbing with each passing minute. The cold water sapped my energy faster than I could replenish it. I'm going to die out here, I thought miserably, struggling against the waves. All because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. The Shadow Enforcer escorted me through the yacht's elegant corridors. My thoughts were with Aiden, wondering what punishment Roman would devise for his loose tongue. Just through here, Luna Scarlett, the beta servant said, gesturing toward a mahogany door. As I reached for the handle, I heard a dull thud behind me. I turned to see the servant slumping unconscious to the floor, revealing a tall figure in black. Before I could scream, a hand clamped over my mouth, and I was yanked sideways into a storage room. The door clicked shut behind us, plunging us into semi-darkness. My attacker spun me around, pressing me back against the door. Though he wore a black mask, I would recognize those amber eyes and perfect facial structure anywhere. Darian Morrison. My heart thundered in my chest as he placed something metallic over my head, a silver helmet of some kind. Immediately, I felt my connection to Roman through our mate bond dampen to almost nothing. Hello, my promised mate, Darian whispered, his voice sending chills down my spine. I struggled against his grip, but he was too strong. When I opened my mouth to scream, I felt the cold barrel of a gun press against my forehead. Make a sound, he threatened softly, and I'll put a silver bullet through that pretty head of yours. My wolf Cora snarled beneath my skin, desperate to attack but helpless against the silver weapon. You're quite the clever little wolf, Darian continued, his amber eyes glinting in the dim light. Those wolf dogs in Silver Ridge, very creative. You made me look like a fool. I glared at him, refusing to show fear despite the gun at my head. Still so defiant, he murmured, using his free hand to pinch my face painfully. Such a change from the sweet little wolf who used to call me Brother Darian back in the Thorne pack. I winced as his fingers dug into my cheeks, but maintained my glare. Stop looking at me like that, he hissed, pressing the gun harder against my skin. Or I swear I'll shoot you right here, mate bond or no mate bond. My wolf Cora snarled futilely beneath my skin, desperate to protect me but powerless against the silver threat. Roman will kill you for this, I thought, wishing I could say it aloud. The silver helmet prevented me from calling to Roman through our bond. I was truly alone with this monster who believed he had some claim on me. Darian's amber eyes studied my face with unsettling intensity. You've always been mine, he whispered. Your father promised you to me, not to Roman, never to Roman. The gun remained steady at my forehead, his threat clear. One wrong move, one scream, and he would pull the trigger. Chapter 200, Dangerous Captive. The cold barrel of Darian's gun rested against my waist, forcing me out of the storeroom. My heart was pounding, but I refused to show fear. "Move," he growled. He shoved me into a cabin next door, quickly locking it behind us. The room was small but luxurious, clearly meant for one of the ship's important guests. How ironic that it would become my prison instead. I turned to face him, making no effort to hide the contempt in my eyes. Darian removed his mask, revealing his perfect features. Once, years ago in the Thorne Pack, those features had seemed handsome to me. Now they were just a reminder of his betrayal. "What's that look for?" he demanded, amber eyes flashing dangerously. I remained silent, my lips pressed in a thin line. Let him wonder what I was thinking. "Fine. Don't want to talk?" Darian stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "I have ways to make you speak," promised mate. Still, I refused to give him the satisfaction of a response. My defiance clearly irritated him. Without warning, he struck me with the butt of his gun. Pain exploded across my temple, and I stumbled back, catching myself against the wall. "Speak," he demanded. The pain broke my resolve. "You treacherous, black-hearted bastard," I spat, touching my throbbing head. "Is this how you treat your so-called promised mate? By catching me twice and threatening me with silver bullets?" A satisfied smirk spread across his face, apparently pleased he'd gotten a reaction. "There's the fiery Scarlett I remember, always too much spirit for your own good." "Go to hell," I growled. Darian circled me like a predator. "I saw you with Victor Blackwell earlier. What did he give Roman?" I frowned in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped, grabbing my arm roughly. "The item Vincent Gray stole from your precious Shadow King. Victor Blackwell had it. Did he hand it over?" The mention of Vincent Gray sent a chill down my spine. Vincent had been terrorizing the territories for months. "I don't know anything about any item," I replied honestly. "Roman didn't tell me what he was meeting Victor about." Darian's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "The Shadow King keeps secrets even from his mate? How interesting." "At least he doesn't kidnap me and hold me at gunpoint," I retorted. A sharp knock on the door interrupted our hostile exchange. Darian pressed the gun to my head again, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Make a sound, and I'll put silver through your skull." He cracked the door open slightly, keeping me out of sight. "What is it?" he demanded. "Darian, we need to talk," a male voice responded urgently. "The Shadow Enforcers are searching the lower decks. We need to move soon." Darian hesitated, then opened the door wider to admit a tall, lean wolf with dark hair and worried eyes. His scent marked him as a beta. His eyes widened in shock when he saw me. "What the?" he started, then lowered his voice. "Is that Scarlett Winters, Roman Thorne's partner? On his ship?" The new arrival ran a hand through his hair in obvious distress. "Have you completely lost your mind, Darian? This is suicide!" "Calm down, Ryan," Darian said dismissively. "Everything's under control." "Control?" Ryan Hayes looked at him incredulously. "You've kidnapped the Shadow King's mate on his own vessel. There's no way we're getting off this ship alive." I couldn't help but smirk at Ryan's panic. At least someone here had a functioning brain. "He's right," I said, crossing my arms. "Roman will tear this ship apart looking for me. And when he finds you, which he will, he'll tear you apart too." Darian's expression darkened. "Shut up. We need to release her and get off this ship immediately," Ryan insisted, pacing nervously. "Do you have any idea what Roman Thorne does to wolves who touch what's his? There are stories." "I'm not afraid of Roman," Darian snapped. Ryan looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Then you're a fool. We've been running from his shadow organization for 2 years, Darian. 2 years, and now you bring us onto his ship and kidnap his mate." "Listen to your beta," I advised mockingly. "He seems to be the only one between you with survival instincts." Darian grabbed my arm roughly. "We're leaving. Now." I jerked away from him, backing against the wall. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "You don't have a choice," he snarled. "Darian," Ryan pleaded, "think this through. We can still walk away from this. Let her go and maybe we can escape before—" "Get out!" Darian suddenly roared at his beta. "Wait by the lifeboats. I'll deal with her myself." Ryan hesitated, shooting me an apologetic glance before Darian shoved him through the door and slammed it shut. When he turned back to me, his amber eyes were blazing with barely controlled rage. He stalked toward me, grabbing my collar and yanking it down to expose my neck fully. His expression transformed into murderous fury when he saw the fresh, claiming marks Roman had left. The purplish-red marks stood out prominently against my pale skin, undeniable proof of my bond with Roman. "What is this?" he hissed, tracing one of the marks with a painful grip. I lifted my chin defiantly. "Exactly what it looks like. I'm Roman's mate." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Without warning, he dragged me toward the bathroom, his fingers digging painfully into my arm. "What are you doing?" I demanded, struggling against his grip. He shoved me into the bathroom and turned on the shower, not bothering to remove my clothes. The cold water hit me like a physical shock. "These marks don't belong on you," he growled, grabbing a washcloth and scrubbing roughly at my neck. "You're my promised mate, not his." "Stop it," I shouted, pushing against his chest. "You're insane. Those marks are permanent." "Nothing is permanent," he snarled, continuing his assault on my claiming marks. "Your adoptive father promised you to me, not to Roman." My wolf, Cora, surged beneath my skin, furious at this violation. Even with the silver helmet blocking most of my power, I found enough strength to fight back. I grabbed the detachable shower head and slammed it against his temple. Darian staggered backward, momentarily stunned. I tried to push past him, but he recovered quickly, pinning me against the shower wall. Water streamed down both of us as we struggled, his strength overpowering mine despite my fierce resistance. "Let me go," I demanded, clawing at his arms. "Never," he growled, his face inches from mine. "You were meant to be mine, Scarlett, not his. Your adoptive father promised." "Liam never formally promised anything," I shouted. "It was a passing comment when I was a child. It means nothing." "It means everything." Darian's grip tightened painfully. "I've spent years tracking you, waiting for the right moment." The sudden sound of a cell phone ringing cut through our struggle. We both froze as the ringtone continued, my phone, which Darian had confiscated. Still keeping me pinned with one arm, Darian pulled the phone from his pocket. His expression changed when he saw the caller ID. "Well, well," he murmured. "Your Alpha is calling." Fear and hope warred within me. If Roman was calling, he must have realized I was missing. Darian answered the video call, immediately pointing his silver bullet gun at my head. Through the cascading shower water, I could see Roman's face on the screen, his expression murderous. "Hello, Shadow King," Darian greeted with mock politeness. "Looking for something?" Roman's ice-blue eyes locked onto mine, assessing my condition. "If you harm her, Darian, there won't be a place in this world where you can hide from me." "Touching," Darian replied coldly. "I want my item, Roman, the one Vincent Gray stole from you." I blinked in confusion. The item Darian was looking for was the same one Roman had been trying to retrieve from Victor? "Release Scarlett, and we'll discuss terms," Roman said, his voice dangerously controlled. "No," Darian pressed the gun harder against my temple. "You'll get the item from Victor Blackwell, then bring it to me. Until then, your precious mate stays with me." Roman's response was unnervingly calm. "Very well. I'll retrieve the item." Darian frowned, clearly suspicious of Roman's easy agreement. "You seem very cooperative suddenly. Has the mighty Shadow King finally found his weakness?" A small smile played at the corner of Roman's mouth. "Perhaps I've found yours as well." With that, Roman turned his phone camera to show someone else in the frame, Ryan Hayes, bound to a chair, his face bruised and bloody. "Ryan?" Darian's voice cracked with surprise. My eyes widened. How had Roman captured Ryan so quickly? The beta had left the cabin only minutes ago. An interesting development, isn't it? Roman's voice was cold with satisfaction. "It seems we each have something the other wants." Darian's grip on me loosened slightly in his shock. "How did you really think I wouldn't have eyes everywhere on my own ship?" Roman cut him off. "Your beta walked straight into my men." The power dynamic had shifted dramatically. Both men now had leverage against the other, creating a dangerous stalemate. My mind raced as I processed what was happening. The item Vincent Gray had stolen from Roman was something Darian desperately wanted. But why? What could be so valuable that both men would risk everything for it? "You have 1 hour," Roman stated flatly. "Bring Scarlett to the main deck, unharmed. I'll bring your beta and the item." "And if I refuse?" Darian challenged, though his voice lacked conviction. Roman's smile was chilling. "Then we'll discover how much you truly care about your loyal beta. I suspect more than you'd admit." The call ended abruptly. leaving us standing in the still-running shower, both soaking wet. Confusion swirled through my mind as Darian lowered the gun, his expression troubled. What Vincent Gray had stolen from Roman was the very thing Darian had been hunting for. The coincidence seemed impossible,